Chapter 1747. He knew that Yu Shinan had written lyrics for the Emperor of Qin's Breaking the Array, so he should have a copy. But he couldn't say it out loud. After all, it was an armor treasure. How could he take it out so easily? Zhang Feng instantly understood Ouyang Xiu's look. He also knew what was going on. He quickly played along and deliberately sighed. Alas, it's a pity that I don't have the music score. I want to play the Emperor of Qin's Breaking the Array, but I don't have the music score. As he spoke, he deliberately hammered his chest with his hand, looking like he was incompetent. From time to time, he would look at Yu Shinan from the corner of his eyes. Yes, Feng is so pitiful. Chu Suiliang patted Zhang Feng's shoulder and pretended to sigh. As good friends, they all knew Yu Shinan's background. But they couldn't say it out loud. So, the three old men put on a show. Pitiful my ass. Yu Shinan blew his beard and glanced at Ouyang Xiu. This guy was the one who started it. He said angrily, "Is the old man useless?" The old man was the one who wrote the lyrics. What's wrong with getting some music scores? In fact, he had already seen through their clumsy acting. If it weren't for the fact that they were in the academy, he would have scolded them. Damn it, you just want the old man's music score? The old man also has music scores. I'll take them out and show them to you. He snorted at the crowd and then looked at Zhang Feng. Boy, isn't it just music scores and lyrics? Is it necessary? You're beating your chest and stamping your feet in front of the old man. The old man has eaten more salt than you have rice. Wait at the academy. The old man will go back and get it for you. After that, Yu Shinan glanced at the crowd. He deliberately stroked his beard and walked out of the academy with his head held high. Looking at the way he walked, it was as if he was saying, "Look, it's up to the old man." After Yu Shinan left, the three old men and the young man looked at each other. They looked at each other. They didn't expect their acting skills to be so weak. "Gentlemen, I'll take my leave first." Zhang Feng cupped his hands towards them. He really couldn't stand this awkward atmosphere. Actually, he was quite happy in his heart. With just a few words, he had gotten the lyrics for the music of the King of Qin Breaking the Array. This was a royal item. It might even be a family heirloom in the future. One must know that Qin Wang Breaks the Enemy Formation was a very rare piece of music and dance. It included the right side, the first side, the second side, the second side, the first side, the second side, the second side, the first side, the second 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 side, the third 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 side, and the third side. As for the assistant, he was going to let Zhang Yuyao do it. Although Zhang Yuyao was not as good as Jingshu, playing the piano was not a problem. Zhang Feng walked quickly to the door of the two women's room. Before he entered, he heard a burst of laughter. "Sister, do you think Prince Zhang will like it? Whether he likes it or not, let's embroider it first. Yes, lest his soul is stolen by other women." "Sister, you're so naughty." Zhang Feng was stunned. What were these two girls talking about? Embroider what? Ahem. He deliberately coughed twice. After a while, he pushed the door open and slowly walked into the room. The main thing was to give the two girls some time to prepare. Otherwise, if they saw something they shouldn't see, it would be awkward. The two girls lowered their heads. Their faces were as red as apples. They sat upright on the chairs. Except for their hands still pulling the corners of their clothes, they didn't seem to have any problems. Zhang Feng glanced at the two girls and showed a playful smile. "Jingshu, you often play the piano. Have you heard of the music of the King of Qin Breaking the Array?" Jingshu suddenly raised her head. Her gloomy face turned red again. "Young master, what did you just say?" "This girl, so the time I gave you to prepare was all in vain." Zhang Feng smiled and shook his head. "I mean, have you heard of the music of the King of Qin Breaking the Array? Or, do you know how to play it?" As his voice fell, Jingshu's body trembled slightly. As a master of the piano, how could she not know the music of the King of Qin Breaking the Array? This song had an extraordinary meaning in the Tang dynasty. It existed before the Tang dynasty was fully formed. It could be said that this military song of the Tang dynasty accompanied the soldiers of the Tang dynasty through countless glorious eras. However, the music of the king of Qin breaking the array had now become a royal song. Generally, it could only be played in the palace. Ordinary people, including those aristocratic families, couldn't come into contact with it. For this reason, many piano players aimed to play the music of the king of Qin breaking the array and worked hard for their whole lives. Jing Shu looked at Zhang Feng, her body trembling a little. "Young master, why did you mention the music of the king of Qin breaking the array today?" Although she hadn't played it, she had heard others say before that the music of the king of Qin breaking the array had 3 changes. Each change was 4 changes, so there were 12 changes, corresponding to the song festival. Every time she thought of such a powerful score, she was excited. Zhang Feng glanced at the 2 girls and smiled. "I'm going to play the music of the king of Qin breaking the array at the basketball game this time. You will be the main piano player, and Yu Yao will be the assistant. What do you think?" "I'll be the main piano player?" Jing Shu couldn't help exclaiming. Chapter 1748. She looked at Zhang Yuyao, unable to believe what she had just heard. After all, not everyone could play the Qin emperor's breaking the array. Only the people in the palace could come into contact with it, and only a professional zither player could play it. Although everything in front of her was a little unrealistic, she believed that Zhang Feng could do it. She didn't know why, but ever since she entrusted herself to Zhang Feng, she trusted him completely. And the facts proved that she wasn't wrong. Zhang Yuyao covered her mouth. She also didn't expect that she would be able to play the Qin emperor's breaking the array one day. Although her zither skills were average, she was valued by the young master. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but feel warm in her heart. "Thank you, young master." "What are you thanking me for?" "These are all small things." Zhang Feng waved his hand and smiled. "You can start practicing now. The Qin emperor's breaking the array will be here soon." As soon as he finished speaking, there was a rush of footsteps outside the door. A moment later, a voice came from outside the door. "Dean, Mr. Bosher has sent you something and a message." Could it be the Qin emperor's breaking the array? Zhang Feng quickly walked out. He saw that the person was wearing the Yu residence's decorations. "What message?" The person quickly handed the package in his hand to Zhang Feng. However, he lowered his head and looked like he didn't know what to say. "What message?" Zhang Feng asked as he opened the package. "Dean, please forgive me first before I dare to say." The person lowered his head and said. Zhang Feng was stunned. Usually, people who said such things didn't mean anything good. But thinking about it, a person like Mr. Bosher wouldn't say anything vulgar. "I forgive you. Speak quickly." Zhang Feng was a little anxious. Hearing this, the man slowly raised his head and stammered, "Mr. Bosher said that you are full of ideas all day long. If you put your mind to learning, you would have already surpassed us old bones. The old man has given you the lyrics and music of the Qin Wang breaking through the enemy's front. However, the old man won't be coming over these few days. He has to stay at home to recuperate. When the basketball game starts, the old man will naturally be there. Remember, do well. Don't let the old man down." As soon as he finished speaking, that person disappeared. Zhang Feng smiled bitterly. He didn't eat people. It seemed that Mr. Bosch had not yet recovered from his anger. But that's fine too. I'll rest at home for a few days and inform him when the basketball game starts. Zhang Feng glanced at the score in his hand and turned to walk towards Jingshu's room. The 2 girls heard the commotion outside the room, so when Zhang Feng entered, he stared at the package and didn't leave. Zhang Feng smiled and split the package in his hand into 2. He handed the score to Jingshu. "Jingshu, this is the score for the Qin Wang breaking through the enemy's front. Learn it with Yu Yao." The Qin Wang breaking through the enemy's front was divided into lyrics and music. Jingshu and the rest only had to learn the music. The lyrics had to be learned by the students of White Deer College. It also included singing and dancing, sticks, swords, and so on. "This is the Qin Wang breaking through the enemy's front?" Jingshu took the package, her eyes filled with surprise. She couldn't wait to open the package. When the words, "Qin Wang breaking through the enemy's front," appeared in front of her eyes, she exclaimed excitedly, "It really is the Qin Wang breaking through the enemy's front. Thank you, young master." Zhang Yuyao's eyes flashed with surprise. Then she looked at Zhang Feng. "Thank you, young master." "You're welcome." Zhang Feng waved his hand and smiled. "You can start practicing now. You'll have to perform on stage." "Okay." Jingshu nodded at Zhang Feng and hugged the score tightly, afraid that someone would snatch it away. After that, Zhang Feng bade farewell to the two girls and walked to the basketball court. This was the place where the students usually entertained themselves. It was also the venue of the basketball competition. At this moment, all the students were busy on the basketball court. Some were setting up chairs, some were setting up tents. They were extremely busy. Ever since these guys knew that the college was going to hold a basketball competition, they didn't even study properly. They only thought about how to perform well and bring the college to greater heights. These students treated the college as their home. Zhang Feng was happy to see this. It was only for a short period of time, so it wasn't a big deal. "Yuan Hong, come here." He waved at a young man who was setting up chairs on the basketball court. This person was the son of a military general in the imperial court. He usually performed well and was considered a top student. When Yuan Hong heard that, he quickly put down the chair in his hand and ran to Zhang Feng. "Dean, what's the matter?" He scratched his head and smiled foolishly. Perhaps it was because of this that this guy was very popular. He could play a leading role in the college. Zhang Feng smiled. "Gather everyone. I have something to say." Yuan Hong nodded and scampered off. After a while, the basketball court was filled with people. They formed a neat line. These were the students of the college. Some of them were hired laborers. There were a total of 5,000 people. Chapter 1749. Zhang Feng swept his gaze over the crowd as he spoke in a loud voice. "Everyone should know that the White Deer Institute is going to host a basketball tournament this time around. The officials of the imperial court, as well as the commoners of Chang, will all return at that time. As long as the preparations for the White Deer Institute are completed, the tournament will be held immediately. For the sake of this grand event, I specially invited the Qin Emperor to come and cheer for the White Deer Institute." As soon as his voice fell, it immediately caused an uproar. "What? The Qin Emperor's breaking the array music? Is the dean going to perform the Qin Emperor's breaking the array music at the basketball competition?" "The Qin Emperor's breaking the array music? That's an imperial song. The dean is so powerful that he can get his hands on such a magical item? Does that mean we can hear the imperial song?" Zhang Feng was satisfied with the crowd's reaction. At least it meant that they knew the Qin Emperor's breaking the array music. It would be more convenient for them to rehearse. He cleared his throat and said loudly, "Everyone is right. This time, the college is going to perform the Qin Emperor's breaking the array music. You are the main actors." After saying that, Zhang Feng waved the lyrics sheet in his hand. Everyone was stunned. They could not believe it. They could not believe that they could perform the Qin Emperor's breaking the array music. Many of them were commoners. They would never be able to come into contact with such an item from the imperial family, let alone sing it. This was a great honor. The academy, which was full of royal aura, was performing the lyrics of the royal family. It was really the manifestation of the ancestors. Looking at the excited crowd, Zhang Feng quickly said, "Everyone, calm down. This is just a song. We need you to perform it on the opening day. Just treat it as normal." He was afraid that these people would do something in the heat of the moment. After all, the emperor was supreme in their hearts. Ordinary people could not touch the emperor's things. In other words, those who touched the emperor's things were not ordinary people. They would have something to brag about. Lao Tzu had performed the Qin Emperor's breaking the array music before. Thinking of this, everyone was filled with pride. The basketball court gradually quietened down. There was only the sound of people talking. Zhang Feng handed the sheet music to Yuan Hong and said, "Yuan Hong, lead everyone to rehearse." Yuan Hong was shocked. He immediately straightened his body and respectfully took the Qin Emperor's breaking the array music. At this moment, everyone's eyes flashed with desire and anticipation. They also wanted to see the Qin Emperor's breaking the array music. However, he saw their anticipation. He straightened his body and carefully flipped a few pages. Then he said to everyone, "Everyone, divide into 12 teams and get ready to rehearse." Zhang Feng smiled and walked out of the basketball court with his hands behind his back. After he took a few steps forward, he heard a loud and clear, "The Emperor's back," the array music. Dissolute songs to break through the formation and enjoy the peaceful people. Four seas royal wind, millennium virtue clear water. Today to success to successes success to us the emperors to the emperor to you to Chang's autumn. At the same time, in the imperial garden of the imperial palace. This used to be a place for the imperial family and the nobles to admire the flowers. Since Zhang Feng's basketball came out, a few mu of land was fenced out and turned into a basketball court. The original flowers were cleared out and the ground was raised to the ground for people to play on. At this time, there was a team of women playing on the court in the imperial garden. They wore short sleeves and tied up their hair. They ran freely on the court like elks, looking valiant and formidable. Not far away, Li Shimin sat in a pavilion. He watched the women on the court attentively and cheered from time to time. Good play. Xiao Zi, slam dunk. These female generals were all carefully selected by him from the palace. Especially this one called Xiao Zi. Her three-point shot was amazing. She hit 4 out of 10 shots. With these people, he had absolute confidence to win first place in this basketball game. Li Shimin picked up a cigarette from the table and prepared to light it. Behind him, Xiao Gizi's eyes were sharp. He immediately took out a match and hurriedly lit it. Ever since the emperor took a liking to this, he never left the fire. Li Shimin took a deep breath and unconsciously revealed a smile. Xiao Gizi, what do you think of this army of women that Zhen chose? Can they win first place this time? Hearing this, Xiao Gizi hurriedly bowed and smiled. Your Majesty's army of women is naturally 1 in a million. This time, they will definitely win first place. Who dares to compete with your Majesty's army of women for first place? Li Shimin lightly snorted, but the corners of his mouth revealed a trace of a smile. Zhen's army of women will naturally win first place. He naturally knew that Xiao Gizi was flattering him. However, he was still happy to hear praise for the army of women. Come, help Zhen undress. Zhen wants to play a few games. Li Shimin stood up and stretched out his arms, indicating for Xiao Gizi to undress. At this time, the sound of footsteps could be heard. A moment later, Zhang Sun Wuji walked over. Your Majesty, this subject has something to report. Li Shimin glanced at Zhang Sun Wuji and smiled. What is it? Chapter 1750. Zhang Sun Wuji lowered his head. Your Majesty, I don't know where Fengzi got the battle formation music from. He's going to play it at the basketball game. He's been rehearsing it for the past few days. Li Shimin's smile disappeared. His expression became serious. He took a deep drag on his cigarette and let the smoke stimulate his body. The battle formation music was originally a war song that accompanied him on the battlefield. It was only after he defeated the rebel Lu Wuzhou that it was rewritten and became the current battle formation music. Every time he heard the battle formation music during the sacrifice, he would think of his brothers who had died on the battlefield. Back then he saw with his own eyes how his brothers died under the enemy's sword, but he couldn't do anything about it. Thinking of this, his heart ached. Who said that since ancient times, emperors were the most heartless? Emperors were also human and had 7 emotions and 6 desires. They just wouldn't show it in front of others. Li Shimin took another drag on his cigarette and calmed himself down. He looked at Zhang Sun Wuji. Why did Fengzi want to play this music? Fengzi said that the entire Tang dynasty will pay attention to this basketball game. We have to play something that can control the crowd. This battle formation music is the best music and dance. Perhaps he could see Li Shimin's feelings. Zhang Sun Wuji kept his head down as he spoke. He was very careful when he spoke because he knew that the battle formation music was only used by the imperial court. Outsiders couldn't use it casually. Now that Fengzi was using it, it was more or less disrespectful to the imperial court. Li Shimin put his hands behind his back and faced White Deer College. He sighed with emotion. Yes, what Fengzi said makes sense. We do need to control the crowd. Actually, I also want to see what kind of music and dance the battle formation music can be performed outside the palace, especially in Fengzi's hands. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhang Sun Wuji froze on the spot as if he was possessed. At first, he was worried that His Majesty would blame Fengzi for this. After all, the battle formation music wasn't something that anyone could play. But now, it seemed that His Majesty did not blame him at all. Instead, he was looking forward to it. In fact, Li Shimin was not the only one who was looking forward to it. He was also looking forward to it. The Qin Emperor breaking the formation music was usually only seen during ceremonies and feasts. It was basically impossible to see it normally. As for this music and dance, he had been looking forward to it for a long time. Now that Feng Zi was going to perform, he was very happy. Your Majesty, Feng Zi wants to play the music of breaking through the enemy's formation. He can't do it without the commander's flag and equipment. What do you think? Zhang Sun Wuji looked at Li Shimin from the corner of his eyes. The equipment for breaking the formation was all in the imperial palace. It could only be moved out of the palace if the emperor gave the order. You're right. Li Shimin nodded and looked at Xiao Gizi. Xiao Gizi immediately arranged for people to send the equipment to White Deer College. Tell them that Lord Zhang Sun sent it. Seeing this, Zhang Sun Wuji hurriedly smiled. Your Majesty really loves the people. The battle formation music has always been performed in the palace and has never been performed outside of the palace. If you perform it outside of the palace this time, all the officials and commoners will be able to see it. It will show your Majesty's kindness and the people's hearts of celebration. Li Shimin was in a good mood when he heard this. He grabbed Zhang Sun Wuji and said, My beloved official, let's go. Play a few rounds with me. Zhang Sun Wuji's expression changed slightly, but he still smiled apologetically. Your Majesty, I think I'll pass. I'm already a bag of old bones. I can't take it anymore. Indeed, his body was not as strong as Li Shimin's. He did not dare to play such a difficult sport. However, Li Shimin did not care so much. He pulled Xiao Gizi's hand and rushed into the basketball court. Xiao Gizi turned around and screamed, Your Majesty, you haven't taken off your clothes yet. Not long after, screams could be heard from the basketball court. At the same time, in White Deer College on Mount Xiao, the students of the college stood on the basketball court. There were a total of 3,000 people. They wore armor and held swords in their hands. They were lined up neatly in a square formation. They were already wearing the armor that Zhang Sun Wuji had sent over. Originally, Zhang Feng wanted everyone to wear the White Deer College uniform. It would be better if Zhang Sun Wuji had sent someone to send the armor. After a few days of rehearsal, everyone had already mastered the music of Qin Wang breaking the array. Today was the day to test everyone. As long as there were no problems, the basketball game could be held at any time. There was a group of people sitting in the audience. They were all students that Zhang Feng had called over to watch the battle formation music. Of course, Chu Suiliang, Ouyang Xiu, Xue Ji, and even Yu Shernan rushed over when he heard the news of the rehearsal. They sat in their chairs and held teacups in their hands. They were very comfortable. Zhang Feng stood in front of the team with a flag in his hand. There was a huge Qin written on it. It was very dazzling. Jing Shu sat on Zhang Feng's left. She was testing a Gu Qin in front of her. Zhang Feng sat on Zhang Yuyao's right. She hugged a pipa and looked forward. There were 10 girls sitting behind the 2 girls. They were holding a Gu Qin and a pipa respectively. They were the assistants of the 2 girls. Not only that, there were also drummers, flutes, and suns. There were a total of 100 people who were eager to give it a try. The battle formation music was a huge project. At the same time, the score was modeled and complicated. It required 5 instruments to play at the same time. The guqin and pipa were the main instruments, while the drums, flutes, and suns were the secondary instruments. Otherwise, the essence of the music would not be revealed. Chapter 1751. Is everyone ready? Zhang Feng turned around and glanced at the crowd as he asked. Everyone nodded in response, indicating that they were ready. Zhang Feng waved to Yuan Hong, who was at the front of the group, and then handed the flag to him. On the battlefield, the flag was a symbol of command, and so was the performance of the Qin Emperor breaking the enemy formation. Because the Qin Emperor breaking the enemy formation was a military song, even if the lyrics had been changed, it was still performed according to the original song and dance, restoring the scene of the battlefield. Yuan Hong held the Qin Emperor flag and walked to the front of the group. He was waiting for a signal, waiting for the music to play. For music and dance, the music had to be played first before the dancers or performers could go on stage. Zhang Feng nodded to Jingshu and Zhang Yuyao. The two girls immediately understood and placed their slender fingers on the strings. Ding ding, zheng zheng. As the two girls played the guqin and pipa, the drummer behind them also beat the drums. Dong dong, dong dong dong. This was only the prelude. There needed to be an introduction. As the formation changed, the other instruments would start to play. As the music started, Yuan Hong waved to the crowd and shouted, "Left circle rise." As soon as he finished speaking, the four groups immediately split into 12 groups. They stood facing each other, holding their swords in the air and roaring. There were 12 variations of the Qin Emperor breaking the enemy formation. They were the left circle, the right side, the first side, the second side, the second side, the first side, the second side, the second side, the first side, the second 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 side. The left circle was the first variation, and it was also the simplest. During the opening ceremony, no one was allowed to speak. They could only wave the flag. Every time the flag changed, it meant that the formation had to be changed. That was the most difficult time. Yuan Hong held the flag tightly with both hands and waved it forcefully, allowing it to float freely in the air. Everyone kept changing their formation. Their footsteps were deafening, and their shouts were deafening. Roar, roar. Following the crowd's performance, the students at the side of the field seemed to have been ignited. They were young people and had restless hearts. At this moment, looking at the field, they were extremely excited and kept waving their clenched fists. Although they had never been on the battlefield before, the scene in front of them seemed to have infected them. Yu Shinan, Ouyang Xiu, Chu Suiliang, Xue Ji, and the others were also extremely excited. Their expressions changed slightly, and their bodies trembled slightly. They were all old officials, so they naturally knew the meaning of the music. In the past, it represented the invincible and invincible Qin army. Now, it represented the Tang dynasty. On the stage, the music reached its climax. The guqin's depth, the pipa's delicacy, the big drum's brightness, the zhao's serenity, and the sun's simplicity. Sometimes it was low, sometimes it was cheerful. The 5 musical instruments instantly collided in White Deer College, producing waves of beautiful notes. Everyone was immersed in the singing and dancing of the students. Coupled with the beautiful music by the side of the stage, this was a perfect visual feast. After a while, Yuan Hong waved the Qin King's flag again, indicating for everyone to stop. The music by the side of the stage slowly came to an end. The performance finally ended, and everyone let out a long sigh of relief. The audience at the side of the stage also slowly sat down. However, they were still unable to calm down. After all, this kind of singing and dancing was rarely seen. They used their hands to pat their chests, trying to calm their uneasy hearts. Even Yu Shinan, Ouyang Xiu, and the others had to hold their hands together when they were serving tea. They were afraid that in a moment of excitement, they would drop the teacup. Yuan Hong held the Qin King's flag and walked in front of Zhang Feng. He said respectfully, "Dean, the drill is over." Zhang Feng nodded in satisfaction. He glanced at the neat team. In this drill, he didn't find any problems. This was enough to show that everyone had put in their efforts. The basketball game could be held at any time. He shifted his gaze to Yuan Hong and said, "You will temporarily take care of the Qin King's flag until the game ends. Also, inform everyone that the opening ceremony will be held tomorrow. Invite everyone to White Deer College." Hearing this, Yuan Hong was overjoyed. The dean's words were the greatest affirmation for them. There was no problem with the Qin Kings breaking the formation. They just had to wait for the opening ceremony. He smiled excitedly. "Yes, Dean. I will immediately bring people to arrange it." With that, Yuan Hong put the Qin King's flag aside and asked everyone to change out of their armor. He brought people to inspect the college. Zhang Feng turned to the 2 girls. "Jingshu Yuyao, go back and practice well. If nothing goes wrong, you will be performing on stage tomorrow." Yes, young master. The two girls stood up and left with the band. After instructing everything, Zhang Feng turned and walked towards the audience. Gentlemen, how was the Qin kings breaking the formation just now? Zhang Feng pointed at the students behind him who were changing their clothes. Old man originally thought that the Qin kings breaking the formation would be ruined by this brat. I didn't expect him to interpret it with a completely new feeling. Yu Shernan stroked his beard and said with a smile. Not bad. Old man had also seen the Qin kings breaking the formation in the palace. It had a solemn and serious temperament. After being interpreted by Yu, this brat, there was a sense of liveliness. Ouyang Xiu nodded and interrupted. With you gentlemen around, this brat will be more at ease. Zhang Feng smiled. Chapter 1752. Although he knew what was going on, he was even more convinced with the affirmation of the people in front of him. After all, they were all great scholars of the current generation. They were experienced and knowledgeable. Since they were satisfied, the others would be too. You brat, don't pretend to be innocent. You know what's going on, yet you still ask us old men. Chu Suiliang blew at his beard and rolled his eyes at Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng scratched his head in embarrassment. These people were smart. It was as if they could see through all his thoughts. At the same time, in Chang'an City, as the news of the opening ceremony spread, the entire Chang'an City began to boil. At that moment, no one was doing business or strolling on the streets. There were only cheering crowds. White Deer College's basketball game is finally going to start. I've been waiting for a few years. F*CKU. How long has it been since President Zhang made this basketball? You said a few years? Don't you want your old face? Yeah, F*CKU. You don't even know about President Zhang's basketball. Why are you going to watch a basketball game? In an instant, the strange person in everyone's eyes was attacked by the crowd and fled. The unpleasant quarrel ended, but everyone's enthusiasm for the basketball game did not diminish. The streets and alleys were filled with cheering Chang'an citizens. They usually did not have the chance to go to White Deer College, let alone watch a basketball game. That was for the rich and powerful. Tomorrow, Shao Mountain would be open to the public. Everyone could go up and watch a basketball game. How could they not be excited? Among them, the happiest were the businessmen. Since ancient times, businessmen were the best at making money. The businessmen in Chang'an were no exception. They seized this opportunity. Knowing that there would be many people on Shao Mountain, they prepared to sell their goods on Shao Mountain. After hearing the news, Zhu Zi, who sold fermented glutinous rice, and Hu Zi, who sold steamed buns, began to prepare their goods at home. They were going to grab a good spot on Shao Mountain the next morning. Even if they could not enter White Deer College, they could still do business on the roadside. The next day at 5 o'clock, the jade rabbit in the sky disappeared. A few stars could be vaguely seen. Chang'an City was a little bright. However, the fog made it difficult to tell the direction. At this moment, many houses were lit up by candles one after another. On the originally empty street, many people carrying baskets appeared one after another. They didn't speak to each other as they walked towards the end of the street with their belongings. Looking from afar, these people were all heading towards Shao Mountain. It turned out that these people were planning to go to Shao Mountain as early as possible to get a good position. Those who were carrying poles were preparing to sell goods. Some of them were also going to watch the competition. There were more and more people on the street, and the whole street seemed to be congested. They squeezed forward one by one. As time passed, the fog slowly dissipated. The people walking in front had arrived at Pyrolite Mountain first. The people behind him followed one after another. The entire Pyrolite Mountain was densely packed with countless people, which made one's scalp go numb. 2 students of the academy stood at the entrance of the academy. They were here to patrol. Because the basketball match was going to be held today, Zhang Feng was afraid that something might happen, so he arranged for them to patrol every 2 hours. One of the students seemed to have seen something. He raised the lantern in his hand and looked at his companion. Yun Ping, look ahead. What's that? The student called Yun Ping frowned. He also raised the lantern in his hand and looked ahead. There's nothing. Yiming, did you see wrongly? No, I didn't see anything moving. Yiming was a little unwilling and pulled Yun Ping with his hand. Yun Ping originally thought that there was nothing, but after hearing Yun Ping's words, he felt a little uneasy. He swallowed his saliva and said, "Then let's go and take a look." After saying that, he pulled Yiming and walked forward with the lantern in his hand. Suddenly, a human face appeared in front of them. Who is it? The two of them took half a step back, feeling a little scared. After all, it was still 5 o'clock in the morning. The sky was not completely bright. Ordinary people wouldn't go up the mountain at this time. Hee, little brother, don't be afraid. I'm here to watch the basketball match. I'm here to eat a steamed bun. The person put down the pole and took out a white steamed bun from it and handed it to the student. He was Wuxia, who sold steamed buns in Cheng. This time, he took the opportunity to watch the basketball match and sell some steamed buns at the same time. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Yiming did not take the steamed bun. He was still a little scared. He held the lantern and shone it on Wuxia's face. Seeing Wuxia's silly smile, Yiming relaxed his vigilance. Why are you here so early to watch the basketball match? If I don't come early, I'm afraid there won't be any space. Everyone in our village is here. Wuxia pointed behind him with a face full of disbelief. Hearing that, Yun Ping hurriedly extended the lantern to the front. Good Lord, he didn't know if he didn't see it. He was shocked when he saw it. Countless people were walking up the mountain. Many of them were carrying things. Yun Ping was frightened and was a little speechless. Little brother, don't be afraid. These are the people of Chang and City. They're here to watch the basketball match. Wuxia said with a smile. The two of them looked at each other and were a little speechless. Damn it. They came so early to watch the basketball match. The sky wasn't even bright. Chapter 1753. If it weren't for the fact that the two of them were brave, anyone else would have been scared to death. Yiming rolled his eyes at Wuxia and said angrily, "Wait here. I have to report to the dean. After all, it's too early. We can't make the decision." Okay, sorry to trouble you. Wuxia chuckled and quickly took out 2 steamed buns from the basket and handed them to the two. You two haven't eaten yet, right? Yiming swallowed his saliva. In fact, he had been hungry for a long time. He glanced at Wuxia and didn't find anything strange. He took the white steamed bun and took 2 bites. He said vaguely, "Wait here. I'll go inform the dean." With that, Yiming held the steamed bun in one hand and ran to Zhang Feng's residence. Soon he arrived at Zhang Feng's residence. Dean, something happened at the entrance. Yiming panted and shouted loudly. In the room, Zhang Feng was sleeping soundly. Suddenly, he was awakened by the shouting. He held the blanket tightly, but the shouting didn't stop. Dean, Zhang Feng couldn't take it anymore. He pulled the blanket away and shouted at the door, "Damn it. Which bastard is disturbing Lao Tzu's sleep? Do you want to die?" With that, he jumped up from the bed, opened the door, and walked out quickly. You better give Lao Tzu a reason. Zhang Feng pointed at Yiming and shouted. Yiming felt wronged. He lowered his head and said, "Dean, I know it's not good to disturb your sleep, but something really happened. A bunch of Chang and citizens came to watch the basketball game." "What did you say?" Zhang Feng's eyes widened in disbelief. "It's still 5 o'clock in the morning. Why are they here so early?" Yiming kept his head down, not daring to look at Zhang Feng. "They came early. They want to get a good seat. Otherwise, there will be too many people." Hearing this, Zhang Feng frowned. If they came so early, it meant that there would be more people behind them. Would White Deer College be able to accommodate so many people? Besides, there weren't that many seats. If it really didn't work, then some people could only stand and watch. Just as he was thinking, Yiming's voice rang out once more. "Dean, these people are still outside the academy. Should we let them in?" Upon hearing that, Zhang Feng looked at the entrance of the academy. As expected, countless lanterns were swaying on the mountain, and there were many more at the entrance of the academy. Each person had a lantern. How many people were there? He couldn't blame anyone but himself for attracting too much attention to the basketball game. Since he was already here, he couldn't just leave him outside the door. Let them in. Zhang Feng sighed inwardly and looked at Yiming. Also, go and inform the students who are still sleeping to get up and gather for the basketball match. Yiming nodded and ran towards the door. At this time, Zhang Feng was no longer sleepy. He went back to his room, put on his clothes, and walked to the basketball court. The basketball court was already filled with people. They were not students, but the people of Chang, and who came to watch the basketball game. Some of them had baskets in their hands, while others had shoulders. Only a small group of people had nothing in their hands. When he saw this scene, Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. He had a bad feeling. What the hell was this? Did they come to the academy to watch the game or to eat? Zhu Zi's eyes were sharp. He discovered Zhang Feng in the first glimmer of light. He hurriedly went forward and said with a smile, "President Zhang, I didn't expect to see you so soon. Come, a bowl of fermented glutinous rice." After that, he turned around and opened the jar behind him. He scooped out a bowl of boiling fermented glutinous rice and handed it to Zhang Feng. As Zhu Zi's voice rang out, the people around also gathered around. "Oh, this is President Zhang. Oh my God, I finally see a living person today. Dean, come and eat the egg that my old hen laid to nourish your body." Mine is a 2.5-year-old hen. None of yours is good. Mine is chicken soup. Zhang Feng was still in a daze. His ears were buzzing, and a bowl of fermented glutinous rice suddenly appeared in front of him. He was a little confused. "You are? President Zhang, you are so forgetful." Zhu Zi smiled innocently. "I am Zhu Zi, who often sells fermented glutinous rice in Tonghui Lane. You used to drink my fermented glutinous rice." When he said this, Zhang Feng was vaguely affected. After all, there were too many people selling things in Tonghui Lane. How could he know who was who? "Zhu Zi, why did you bring fermented glutinous rice to White Deer College? Also, are these people carrying pots the same as you?" Zhang Feng pointed at the people behind Zhu Zi who were carrying bottles and jars. "Dean, you don't know how beneficial the basketball game you organized this time is for us," Zhu Zi said with a smile. This made Zhang Feng even more confused. Didn't he organize the basketball game because of his promise? He also wanted to promote this event. What did it have to do with them? He didn't understand and asked, "How is the basketball game beneficial to you?" Zhu Zi curled his lips and was a little proud. "Since you organized the basketball game, those who play basketball have to eat. Although White Deer College doesn't lack food, our own family isn't bad either. That's why we brought some over to sell and earn some money." Zhu Zi lowered his head. He was a little ashamed. Chapter 1754. After all, the academy belonged to someone else. It was rude of them to bring their goods here to do business without informing him first. Zhang Feng finally understood that these people were here to make money during the basketball game. Lao Tzu organized the basketball game for them to watch. If they were not here to do business, they could have just brought their own eyes. Why did they bring their own goods here? Did they think that Lao Tzu was a wet market? However, even though they scolded him, these people were still smart. They knew that they had to seize this opportunity to make a fortune. "Here, Dean, give me a bowl of fermented glutinous rice." Zhu Zi was indeed a businessman. Seeing that Zhang Feng's expression was not right, he quickly handed over the fermented glutinous rice in his hand. Zhang Feng rolled his eyes at Zhu Zi. He now suspected that this guy was the one who started it. However, he could not say it out loud. After all, everyone was trying to make a living. He took the fermented glutinous rice and forced a smile. "I don't object to you selling things, but you have to abide by the rules of the academy and not cause trouble." After he finished speaking, he picked up the bowl and swallowed it in one gulp. As for what Zhu Zi said, he did not hear it at all. He only hoped that these people would not destroy the academy and would not go around spilling food. Seeing that Zhang Feng had eaten the fermented glutinous rice, the others could not stand it and took their own food. "Dean, have a bite of mine." "You haven't eaten my eggs yet, Dean." Seeing this, Zhang Feng quickly waved his hand and fled. If he ate any more, he would be stuffed to death. Just as he was about to leave the basketball game, Yuan Hong came over with a group of students. Zhang Feng did not have a place to vent his anger, and now there was a punching bag. He quickly stepped forward and said with a gloomy face, "Yuan Hong, why are you only here now? Do you only know how to sleep the whole day? Yuan Hong rubbed his sleepy eyes and was a little confused. I'm sorry, Dean. Seeing this, Zhang Feng could not vent his anger. He pointed to the commoners behind him and said, Yuan Hong, these are the commoners who came to watch the competition. Get some people to make arrangements for them. Leave 3,000 seats and distribute the rest to the commoners. With that said, Zhang Feng was about to leave when he suddenly remembered something. Also, you can't eat the food of the common people. By the way, help me pay for a person called Zhu Zi's wine. After hearing all this, Yuan Hong, who was still in a daze, became even more confused. What did he mean by not eating the food of the common people? How could the commoners get food to watch a basketball match? And what fermented glutinous rice? Just as he was about to ask for clarification, he realized that Zhang Feng had left without looking back. Yuan Hong had no choice but to lead his students to the basketball court. However, as soon as he walked to the side of the court, he was stunned. The others behind him were also stunned. At the same time, in the mansion of High Duke Lu, the lights in the mansion gradually brightened. The servants on night duty were replaced by a new batch of servants. Cheng Yaojin was sleeping. To be precise, he was sleeping on the floor. Last night, because he drank a little too much before going to bed, he was kicked off the bed by Madame Cheng. He hugged the blanket that could not cover his body and shivered on the floor. Even so, the cold weather could not stop his persistence to fall asleep. His snores shook the sky. At this moment, there was a series of knocks and shouts outside the door. Master, something bad has happened. Master, wake up. Inside the room, Cheng Yaojin was sleeping soundly. How could he hear the servants' voices? However, the voices woke Madame Cheng up. She frowned and shouted at the door, What are you making so much noise for? Are you tired of living? The servants were startled. He did not dare to provoke the famous tigress of the Tang dynasty. However, after thinking about the matter at hand, he hurriedly said, Madam, please forgive me. I didn't do it on purpose. Something has happened. I just received a report that the commoners of Chang and city have all gone to White Deer College. Shao Mountain is full of people. If you don't go now, you won't be able to go up later. What? The commoners of Chang and have all gone up Shao Mountain? Madame Cheng exclaimed in surprise and sat up straight. She knew how powerful the commoners of Chang'an were. Once the mountain was full of people, no one could go up. Not to mention a duke, even a prince might not be able to squeeze in. There were so many commoners on the mountain. How could it be so easy to get out of the way? You couldn't possibly kill them. Besides, old Cheng still had to participate in the basketball game. If he was late, he could only King watch from the foot of the mountain. Thinking of this, she wanted to look at old Cheng, who was sleeping soundly on the ground. She was instantly furious. This guy knew that he was going to the game today, but he still dared to drink last night? Bastard, are you still sleeping? Madame Cheng got off the bed and went to old Cheng. She grabbed his ear and said fiercely, Bastard, get up quickly. Old Cheng, who was still dreaming, suddenly felt pain and sat up. Who the CK hit me? It's your mother. Madame Cheng did not let go and used even more strength. Old Cheng turned around and quickly squeezed out a bitter smile. Madam, what's wrong with you? Didn't you get angry last night? Hearing this, Madame Cheng's expression turned even uglier and she used even more strength. You bastard, you still have the face to say that? You only know how to drink and sleep every day. The commoners of Chang and have all gone to White Deer College. If you were a little later, you wouldn't even be able to catch up with the heat. Chapter 1755. As soon as she finished speaking, old Cheng's expression changed. What? The people went up Shao Mountain so early? After saying that, he ignored the pain in his ear and hurriedly grabbed his clothes, ready to run out of the house. Seeing this, Madame Cheng let go and said in a slightly gentler tone, Remember to call old He and the emperor later. Otherwise, let's see how you'll end up after the competition. Old Cheng chuckled and kissed Madame Cheng. He smiled and said, Don't worry, my good wife. After saying that, he grabbed his clothes and ran out of the door. Only the embarrassed Madame Cheng was left in the room. As soon as he left the room, Old Cheng saw the servant who had sent the message earlier. He hurriedly said, "Cheng Yi, quickly tell Cheng Er and those bastards to stop sleeping. Damn it, we won't be able to go up Shao Mountain later. Bring Lao Tzu's horse over." After saying that, he ran to the outer courtyard without looking back. As he ran, he put on his clothes impatiently. Cheng Yi also knew the severity of the matter. He hurriedly went to inform Cheng Er and the others to gather in the outer courtyard. Not long after, everyone from the basketball team arrived in the front courtyard. Old Cheng glanced at the disheveled crowd and hurriedly said, "Let's set off immediately. Let's go to the Duke of Yi's mansion first." With that, he mounted his horse and galloped in the direction of the Duke of Yi's mansion. Everyone followed closely behind. Not long after, everyone arrived at the Duke of Yi's mansion. Old Cheng jumped off his horse and rushed straight into the mansion. When the servant at the door saw that it was Qing Yaojin, he hurriedly went forward to welcome him. "Duke Lu, excuse me for not welcoming you. May I ask why you've come to the mansion so early?" Old Cheng didn't even look at the servant and directly rushed into the mansion. The servant couldn't say anything. After all, Qing Yaojin and Yu Qigong's relationship was obvious. If he blocked the way, he would be courting death. Old Hey, old Hey. As soon as he entered, Old Cheng's mouth didn't stay idle. He began to shout. It didn't matter if he didn't shout, but all the servants in the mansion came over. They were about to curse when they saw that it was Old Cheng, so they quickly shut up. "Where is Old Hey sleeping?" Old Cheng asked the servants. The servant naturally knew who this fellow was talking about. He didn't dare to be negligent and pointed to the innermost room. Old Cheng was about to walk inside quickly when he suddenly thought of something. He said to the servants, "Call Big Black's horse and basketball team immediately and gather in the front yard." Everyone was a little confused. Although Lu Guogong had a good relationship with his master, he shouldn't go so far as to meddle in the affairs of the Duke of Yi estate, right? Old Cheng didn't think so. Seeing that the family didn't move, he instantly became angry and shouted, "Damn it, Lao Tzu's words don't work, do they? Do you believe that Lao Tzu will chop you up right now?" As soon as he finished speaking, everyone's expression changed, and they all ran away. Old Cheng snorted and quickly walked to the front of the house. He was about to break in, but when he thought about it, he realized that things would get out of hand if he saw his sister-in-law. Thus, he stood at the door and shouted, "Big Old Black, quickly get up for Lao Tzu. Big Old Black, something big has happened." Old Cheng's voice was quite good. Not long after, Yu Qigong's loud cursing came from the room. "That bastard is cursing Lao Tzu. Is he tired of living? Wait for Lao Tzu to come out and deal with you." As soon as he finished speaking, the door was opened, and a gloomy face appeared in front of him. It was Yu Qigong. "Big Old Black, why are you still sleeping?" Old Cheng grabbed Yu Qigong and said anxiously, "Damn it, something big has happened. The people of Chang and have all gone to White Deer College. If we're a step late, we'll only be able to drink the northwest wind later." When Yu Qigong, who was still a little confused, heard this, he instantly felt as if he had taken a cold shower. His entire body trembled. "What the hell are you talking about? The people of Chang and have gone up Shao Mountain. Why are they going so early? How does Lao Tzu know? Stop talking nonsense. Hurry up and get the clothes. Let's go find His Majesty. Otherwise, we won't even be able to go up the mountain later." As soon as he said this, Yu Qigong instantly woke up. "Okay, you wait here for Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu will go change immediately." With that, he turned around and rushed into the room. A moment later, he heard a crackling sound and a woman's cursing from inside. "Big Old Black, are you King done?" Old Cheng was a little impatient from waiting. I'm coming. Yu Qigong rushed out as he put on his clothes. He pulled Old Cheng and hurriedly walked into the courtyard. Let's go find His Majesty." The two of them rushed to the front courtyard. At this moment, the horses and basketball team had been waiting here for a long time. Old Cheng was quite useful when he was fierce. "Let's get on the horse and go to the palace to find His Majesty." Old Cheng mounted his horse, said something to Yu Qigong, and galloped away. Yu Qigong led a group of people and followed closely behind, afraid that they would fall behind. The two of them set off in the direction of the palace. However, they had just taken a few hundred steps when they discovered a serious problem. Chang'an Street was filled with people. They were all carrying goods on their shoulders as they set off in the direction of Shao Mountain. How the hell were they going to get there? Old Sheng suddenly had a headache. He turned around to look at Yu Qigong and found that he was still in a daze. Yu Qigong didn't pay much attention to it just now. After all, what did the people of Chang'an know? They were just here to join in the fun. Chapter 1756. Na Cheng thought, F***ck, the entire street of Chang'an is filled with commoners. This is too scary. However, old Sheng's anger flared up. He slapped the back of Yu Qigong's head and roared, "Big old hey, I'll charge at the front later. You'll be closer to the back. Don't F***king get lost." After saying that, he didn't wait for Yu Qigong's reaction and roared at the commoners. "Get out of the way. All the commoners in front, get out of the way for Lao Tzu." The commoners who were rushing along were so frightened that they turned around abruptly. When they saw that it was old Cheng, they instantly cried out in alarm. "Oh my God, the great demon king is here. Quickly make way for the great demon king. Those in front who don't know death, quickly get out of the way." The commoners immediately dodged to the side of the road, afraid that they would be hit by old Cheng. Soon, a wide road was cleared out on the main street. Seeing this, old Cheng whipped his horse, shouted, and ran in the direction of the palace. Not long after, the two of them arrived at the palace. At this time, it was already morning. The sky was starting to brighten, and everything within a radius of half a mile could be seen. When the guards guarding the palace gate saw that it was Duke Lu and Duke Yi, they hurriedly went up to greet them. "Greetings, Duke Lu. May I know why you've come to the palace so early? If it was any other day, it would be understandable." However, His Majesty had already given the order that today was a holiday. Why did the two of them still come to the palace? The guard was a little confused. Old Sheng didn't care so much. He pushed the guard away. "Don't F***king talk nonsense with Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu has important matters to discuss with His Majesty." After saying that, old Cheng rushed into the palace. They were the guards of the imperial palace. If something were to happen, they would be beheaded. However, when they saw the two fiendish killing gods, they still said with a pleasant expression, "Two high dukes, please don't make things difficult for this lowly one. Trespassing into the imperial palace is punishable by death. Even this lowly one can't afford it." If someone were to trespass into the palace, not only would the trespasser be punished, even the guards of the palace would be punished. They would not be able to bear it. As soon as he finished speaking, old Sheng immediately flew into a rage. He slapped the guard in the face and glared at him. "You bastard, do you really think you're a human? If you delay the important matters of me, Lao Tzu, and His Majesty, Lao Tzu will destroy you." The guard was knocked to the ground, and the pain caused him to shiver. He was normally a guard of the palace gates, so he could be considered a veteran. Seeing the expressions on the faces of Duke of Lu and the Duke of Yi today, he knew that something must have happened, or else they wouldn't be acting like this. Moreover, although Lu Guogong was usually fierce, he wouldn't do it on a whim. Did something really happen? If he were to spoil the plan because of his interference, then he would not hesitate to execute his entire family. Thinking of this, he hurriedly stood up, covered his hot cheeks, and hurriedly said, "Two high dukes, please calm down. I will take you to His Majesty's bedroom." After saying that, he turned to his companion and said, "Quickly go and inform eunuch Xiaogizi that Duke of Lu and the Duke of Yi are coming to see His Majesty." As soon as he finished speaking, the guard turned to look at old Cheng and Yu Qigong. "Two high dukes, please." Old Cheng snorted coldly and strode towards the imperial palace. Horses were not allowed in the imperial palace, so the two of them could only walk. The basketball team was waiting outside the door. A moment later, the two of them arrived near Li Shimin's bedroom. At this moment, Xiaogizi was also standing at the entrance of the palace. He had been informed by the guard. Originally, as His Majesty's personal eunuch, he could only sleep when His Majesty was asleep. In total, he hadn't slept well for a few days. He had been woken up by these two fools for the past few days. He had long cursed them in his heart, but the other party's status was too high, so he endured it in his heart. Seeing the two of them walk up, Xiao Gizi hurriedly put on a smile. "Hi Dukes, why have you come to see His Majesty so early in the morning?" Old Cheng took a step forward and hurriedly said, "Xiao Gizi, quickly go and wake His Majesty up. Something happened at the basketball game." Xiao Gizi quivered. As the most popular person by His Majesty's side, he naturally knew the importance of the basketball game. It was His Majesty's favorite sport. He didn't dare to neglect this. He hurriedly pushed open the door and rushed in. As for Old Cheng and Yu Qigong, these two smart people naturally waited outside the door. This was because the two of them knew Li Shimin too well. He had lived in the military camp since he was young and had a temper. Although he was now the emperor and had restrained himself a lot, it was still uncomfortable to be woken up while sleeping. Xiao Gizi had just entered for less than a cigarette when loud cursing came from inside. "Are you tired of living? There's no court today. It wasn't easy for me to have a good night's sleep, and you're here to wake me up? Your Majesty, please spare me. It's High Duke Lu and High Duke Yi who have something to discuss with you. They said that something happened at the basketball game. After all this time, it's those two guys. What could happen at the basketball game? Isn't there still Fengzi? Tell them to come in and see me." The cursing slowly stopped. Not long after, Xiao Gizi walked out with his hand covering his red face. He looked at Old Cheng and Yu Qigong bitterly. "His Majesty asked you to come in." Old Cheng and Yu Qigong looked at each other. They were a little scared, but when they thought about the basketball game, they hurriedly walked to the bedchamber. In the bedchamber, Li Shimin was half lying on the bed with a cigarette in his hand. His eyes were slightly narrowed as he looked at Old Cheng and Yu Qigong, who had just walked in. Chapter 1757. Tell me, why did the two of you disturb my sleep? Don't use small matters to brush me off. After saying that, Li Shimin put the cigarette in his mouth, took a deep puff, and let out a long breath. Obviously, he was very angry after being woken up this time and was trying his best to suppress it. If Old Cheng and Yu Qigong couldn't give a good reason, it wouldn't be easy. Old Cheng and Yu Qigong looked at each other. The latter nudged Old Cheng with the tip of his elbow, indicating for him to speak. Old Cheng glared at Yu Qigong, but he still took a step forward and stammered, "Your Majesty, I just received news that the people of Chang and set off for White Deer College at dawn. Now, White Deer College is surrounded by people. It's probably difficult to go up." "What did you say?" Li Shimin was shocked, and the cigarette in his hand fell to the ground. "Why are the people going so early?" "This?" Old Cheng spread his hands and smiled bitterly. "I don't know either. When Old Hay and I rushed over, there were still many people on Chang, an avenue heading for White Deer College. If we don't leave now, we really won't be able to go up later." Hearing this, Li Shimin frowned. It wasn't that he doubted Old Cheng's words, but he couldn't figure out why the people were going so early. Watching a basketball game? But the sky wasn't completely bright yet. Ridiculous, really King ridiculous. "Your Majesty, if we don't leave now, we won't be able to go up." Yu Qigong urged from the side. Li Shimin nodded and shouted outside the door, "Little Gizi, come and undress me." As soon as he finished speaking, Little Gizi walked in with a group of palace maids in casual clothes. Little Gizi's mind worked quickly. He had been listening outside the door, so he heard everything clearly. In a short while, the clothes were changed. "Prepare the horses and leave the palace," Li Shimin said to Little Gizi as he walked. "Your Majesty, the horses have been prepared. The army of women has been waiting outside the palace for a long time." Little Gizi bowed and said. Li Shimin nodded and quickly walked out of the palace gate. Old Cheng and Yu Qigong followed closely behind. Sure enough, the army of women had been waiting at the palace gate for a long time. Li Shimin mounted his horse and galloped towards White Deer College. Everyone followed closely behind. As soon as he exited the palace, he saw countless commoners walking on the streets in the direction of White Deer College. This scene made Li Shimin's scalp tingle. He looked at Old Cheng beside him and hurriedly said, "Old Cheng, hurry up and lead the way." Old Cheng nodded and shouted to the front, "The people in front, get out of the way." It had to be said that Old Cheng's voice was still effective. When the people saw such a formation, they quickly moved to the side. Old Cheng squeezed his horse's belly and rushed forward to open the way for Li Shimin. Only then did the group set off for White Deer College. Finally, they arrived at the foot of the mountain. However, the scene in front of them made them stop in their tracks. Huff! Li Shimin reined in his horse and stared at the scene in front of him. Humans. There were people all over the mountains and plains. The entire Shao Mountain was filled with a dense crowd of people. There were people carrying loads and baskets. Basically, no one was empty-handed. These commoners had to bring food to watch a basketball game? Were they planning to live on Shao Mountain? Everyone was stunned. After a while, Li Shimin finally reacted. He got off his horse and stopped a man who was about to go up the mountain with a load. "Brother, what are you carrying?" The man stopped and said with a smile, "What? You want to sell my steamed buns?" Li Shimin shook his head and continued to ask, "Brother, why did you bring so much food up the mountain?" The man looked at Li Shimin strangely. "You're not from here, right? You don't even know this? Today, President Zhang is holding the opening ceremony of the basketball game. We're all going to watch the opening ceremony and sell some of our things." Li Shimin was even more confused when he heard this. He subconsciously asked, "What does the opening ceremony of the basketball game have to do with you selling things?" The man glanced at Li Shimin and said proudly, "It's obvious that you don't know how to do business. Today is the opening ceremony. There will definitely be a lot of high-ranking officials and nobles coming. When the time comes, these high-ranking officials and nobles will definitely eat. Although our things aren't very good and we might not be able to sell them, we might be able to sell them if we try our luck." Hearing this, Li Shimin finally understood. These commoners had originally planned to use this competition as an opportunity to go up the mountain to do business. It had to be said that the working people were still very smart. However, with so many people, Shao Mountain was already full. How could he go up the mountain? He couldn't chase these commoners away, right? "Are you going to sell my steamed buns or not?" The man was a little unhappy. "Then I'll buy some." Li Shimin was a little embarrassed. After all, he had been asking the man for so long. He turned to look at Cheng Yaojin. "Old Cheng, give the money to this young man." After traveling all morning, Old Cheng was already hungry. He quickly took out some copper coins and stuffed them into the man's hand. "I want all your steamed buns." The man looked at the money in his hand and was instantly overjoyed. He put down the burden in his hand, turned around, and ran up the mountain. Seeing this, Li Shimin said to Cheng Yaojin, "Old Cheng, old you, eat some steamed buns. Wait for a while and lead the way." Chapter 1758. The two of them laughed mischievously and distributed the steamed buns. After a while, everyone was full. Cheng Yaojin and Yu Qigong took on the heavy responsibility of being the two guardians and led the basketball team to open a path. The two of them were born in the military and were not cultured people. They pushed and shoved to open a path. When the surrounding commoners saw their attire, they knew that they were not to be trifled with. They suppressed their anger. After walking for about 5 minutes, they finally arrived at White Deer College. They did not linger and walked directly to the basketball court. When they arrived at the basketball court, they saw another scene that made them dumbfounded. There was not a single person sitting on the basketball court, but there were countless commoners surrounding the court. They placed their items on the ground to sell. Some were selling fermented glutinous rice, some were selling steamed buns, and some were selling eggs. In short, they were selling everything. When he saw this, Li Shimin actually felt a little hungry. He rubbed his rumbling stomach. It turned out that he had not eaten a single grain of rice since he woke up. "Let's go, Old Cheng, old you, get a bowl of fermented glutinous rice." After he finished speaking, Li Shimin quickly walked to the store that was selling fermented glutinous rice. The person selling fermented glutinous rice was Zhu Zi. He had occupied a good spot, but he had not opened for business the entire morning. When he saw Li Shimin and the rest walking over, he was delighted and quickly went to greet them. "Oh, you must be the officials who came to play basketball. You're really lucky. My fermented glutinous rice just came out of the oven and is still warm." Li Shimin nodded and replied, "Yes, serve the fermented glutinous rice. We'll count according to the number of people and get something that can fill our stomachs." The basketball players had woken up at the same time as them and had not eaten anything. If they did not fill their stomachs now, they would not be able to go on stage later. He suddenly felt that it was not a bad thing for the commoners to sell their items. The commoners earned money in the middle, and the players also ate. It was killing two birds with one stone. However, he had forgotten something. Without the commoners, they would not have been able to attend White Deer College so early. Alright, please wait a moment. I'll buy some steamed buns for you. Zhu Zi replied excitedly and ran to the other stalls. Li Shimon's group had a total of more than 40 people. One bowl per person was enough for him to make a fortune. At this moment, Zhang Feng's voice came from not far away. Lao Li, why are you guys here so early? Li Shimon turned his head and looked in the direction of the voice. Zhang Feng was walking towards him. He immediately became angry. It's all your fault, kid. So many people came for the opening ceremony. If I didn't come earlier, I wouldn't have been able to climb Mount. Zhang Feng sat on the stool and patted Li Shimon's shoulder. He smiled awkwardly and said, I didn't expect so many people to come up and buy their own food. Without waiting for Li Shimon's reply, Zhang Feng turned to Zhu Zi and said, Zhu Zi, add another bowl of fermented glutinous rice and bring some steamed buns. Kid, you still have the guts to eat? Let me ask you, when is the opening ceremony? Cheng Yaojin's expression was a little ugly as he interjected. He was the first to wake up that morning. He was as tired as a dog and didn't eat or drink. When he finally reached Mount E, he saw this scene. Don't be anxious. When all the participating teams are here, we'll start immediately. Zhang Feng took the bowl of fermented glutinous rice from Zhu Zi and smiled. Previously, he thought that the people coming up the mountain to do business would affect the competition. Now, it seemed that not only would it not affect the competition, but it would also benefit the competition. It could be seen from Lao Li and the others. These guys would look for food when they were hungry. The people took advantage of this opportunity. He had to admire the person who set up the stalls around the basketball court and even sold things after watching the basketball game. He was really king genius. Although White Deer College prepared food, it was inevitable that they would overlook it. With these people, there was nothing to worry about. There are so many people at the foot of the mountain. When will all the teams be here? Cheng Yaojin held the bowl of fermented glutinous rice and ate as he said, Don't wait. Let's start the ceremony after we finish eating. Yes, we can't wait. Yu Qigong also urged from the side. After he finished speaking, he passed the bowl of fermented glutinous rice to Zhu Zi. Give me another bowl. We don't have to wait too long. Now, we just have to wait for the Imperial College. The other officials are already here. Zhang Feng said with a smile. What did you say? Cheng Yaojin stared. Why didn't these guys call Lao Tzu when they came? They made Lao Tzu climb the mountain for so long. Why should they call you that? Hurry up and eat the fermented glutinous rice. Zhang Feng rolled his eyes at old Cheng and said angrily, When the people from the Imperial College arrive, we'll start the ceremony immediately. As soon as he finished speaking, Yuan Hong ran over and quietly whispered something into Zhang Feng's ear. Zhang Feng put on a smile and said, The people from the directorate have arrived. The opening ceremony will begin soon. Go and take your seats in the auditorium. Why should I go to the spectator seats? I still have to compete. Cheng Yaojin was anxious. He thought that the competition wouldn't start. Chapter 1759. You have to perform a song and dance for the opening ceremony, you country bumpkin. Zhang Feng snorted and left with a wave of his sleeves. Li Shimin smiled knowingly. He knew that Feng Zi was going to perform the battle-breaking music. Let's go to the audience seats first. With that, he asked Cheng Yaojin to pay and walked to the audience seats. At this moment, the audience seats were already full. They were all high-ranking officials and nobles of the Tang dynasty. Yu Shernan, Ouyang Xiu, Xue Ji, Chu Suiliang, and the others sat in the front row. Wei Jing, Zhang Sun Wuji, Fang Shenling, Du Ruhui, and the others sat in the second row. Some officials and generals sat in the third row. Some nobles and merchants sat in the fourth row. Seeing Li Shimin and the others walk to the audience seats, the crowd was shocked and quickly gave up their seats. Yu Shernan, Ouyang Xiu, and the others in the first row snorted coldly and ignored them. Li Shimin didn't mind. He was already used to these old guys being stubborn. Once they had a bad impression of you, it wouldn't change for the rest of your life. He shook his head and sat in the second row with Qing Yaojin and the others. Back in the audience seats, Zhang Feng slowly walked up the stage with a strange object in his hand. The reason why it was strange was because it was round on one end and pointed on the other. It looked like a cylinder. In fact, this was a temporary microphone that Zhang Feng asked the students to make. There was no choice. There were too many people in the audience. If he spoke in a low voice, no one could hear him. Ahem, hello everyone. Welcome to the opening ceremony of White Deer College. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a round of applause from the audience. Looking at the source of the applause, it was the people who were selling things. To them, Principal Zhang was their benefactor who had helped them earn money this time. Although they couldn't understand what was being said, it was necessary for them to applaud. Zhang Feng waved his hand, indicating for everyone to stop. Then he placed the microphone by his mouth and announced loudly, "In order to thank everyone for participating in the opening ceremony, White Deer Institute has specially prepared a musical performance, Qin Wang Breaking the Formation, for everyone to enjoy." As soon as these words came out, the audience that was still extremely noisy just now instantly became silent. Before they came, they all knew that they were going to perform the Qin Wang Breaking the Array. But when they heard it with their own ears, they couldn't help but feel a little excited. This was especially true for the commoners. With their qualifications, they would never be able to come into contact with such a divine tune in their lifetime. And today, he could actually see it with his own eyes? This was a gift from the heavens. Some of the older elders' eyes were already starting to tear up. Looking at the spectator stands, they were different from the commoners. They were all solemn. Everyone had a solemn expression on their faces, because they knew that this was the military song of the Tang dynasty. As for them, they were the officials of the Tang dynasty, so they had to watch the show with awe. At this moment, the melodious sound of a guqin was heard. It was like a gentle breeze caressing a willow tree. Following the sound of the guqin, the delicate sound of a pipa was also heard. The two were mixed together, as if a couple were telling each other their hearts. Everyone looked towards the direction of the sound. There was a group of people sitting at the edge of the basketball court. Each of them was holding a guqin, pipa, drum, flute, sun, and so on. The leaders were Jingshu and Zhang Yuyao. The two girls didn't care about what was going on outside. They were focused on playing the guqin, as if they had entered a state of selflessness. At this moment, the man playing the drum picked up the hammer in his hand and hit the frame of the drum. Then, the guqin and pipa started to play faster, as if there were 10,000 horses galloping. The flute and sun started to play as well. They played along with the guqin and pipa's fast rhythm. Dong dong, dong dong dong. The drums were beaten, and the drum beats were like whips, raising the speed of the 10,000 horses. In an instant, the entire basketball court was filled with the perfect movement of everyone. In the audience, a man in armor suddenly jumped up from the bottom of the court. If one looked carefully, he was carrying a flag with the word Qin written on it. This man was Yuan Hong. In this performance, he would play the role of the deputy general of the king of Qin, giving orders. Yuan Hong stood still and pulled out the King Qin flag on his back. He held it tightly with both hands and kept waving it in the air. After a while, a group of armored soldiers rushed up the court. It looked chaotic, but in fact, there was a hidden array. This was the secret of the king of Qin's breaking the array. After everyone got on the court, they immediately divided into 12 teams. Each team had 250 people. There were a total of 3,000 people. They were all students of the academy. They all looked serious. They were carrying Tang swords and holding a spear in their hands. Although they lacked a murderous aura, they were more energetic and brave. Yuan Hong stood at the front and faced everyone. He waved the King Qin flag to the left. This was the order to change the formation. Because this was an official performance, they couldn't say the order. They could only wave the flag. Seeing this, the students at the front immediately raised their spears and stabbed forward. They kept shouting slogans. Kill, kill. Accompanied by the music and dance performed by the band, the entire court was filled with a vicious aura. At the side of the court, the onlookers were shocked. It was the first time they had seen such a song and dance. Although they were ordinary people, they couldn't help but feel excited when they saw such a song and dance. Chapter 1760. Not to mention that this was a song and dance that only the royal family could watch. At this moment, they couldn't calm down. They were just ordinary people. To them, the song and dance they could see was a gift. They pressed their chests and tried to calm their hearts. In the audience, everyone was excited. Among them were generals, especially Qing Yaojin and Yu Qigong. When they heard the word kill, just now, they couldn't help but clench their fists. They thought of their brothers who had fought with them. Those people had died on the battlefield. As for Li Shimin, his eyes were actually moist. As the emperor, the former king of Qin, he understood the meaning of this song and dance the best. Back then, when he led the army to attack Lu Wuzhou, the whole army performed this song and dance that night. At that time, the torches lit up the night as if it was daytime. The whole army was cheering because the king of Qin defeated Lu Wuzhou. The next day, Li Shimin led the army to defeat Lu Wuzhou with the help of the high morale of the song. This song and dance could be said to have accompanied him for his whole life and won countless victories. Later, after the world was unified, Li Shimin ordered people to recompile the song and fill in the lyrics. That was how the song came to be today. This song and dance could be said to be the cornerstone of his success, and also a symbol of the prosperity of the Tang dynasty. Everyone was excited and looked at the scene on the field. On the stage, the rhythm of the song and dance became faster and faster, presenting a perfect auditory feast. Yuan Hong began to change the king of Qin's flag. Everyone followed the order and changed to the next formation, the right side. The 12 teams immediately stood opposite each other, pulled out their Tang swords, held them in the air, and roared. With everyone's performance, the field was once again set off a climax. The people on the sidelines looked at this scene as if they were watching their children enlist in the army. Yes, most of them were parents, and the soldiers of the Tang dynasty were their children. Some died on the battlefield, and some were still serving in the army. At this moment, they seemed to be infected by the passion on the field and shouted together. Roar? In the audience, Li Shimin looked at the crowd of people and clenched his fists tightly. He didn't expect that Feng Zi's performance of Qin Wang breaking the array would attract such a big response. Even the emotions of the people were stirred up. Following the performance on the stage, the Qin Wang breaking the battle formation music finally reached the final battle formation. Yuan Hong raised the Qin King banner and waved it in the air. Everyone quickly raised the spears in their hands and pointed them at the sky. He pulled out the Tang saber from his waist and waved it forward while roaring. By the law, the head of state will punish the traitors. Singing songs to break through the array, we enjoy the peaceful people together. 4 seas royal wind, millennium virtue clear water. He was not even wearing his military uniform. Today he had succeeded. Lord Shengkai Chongli, the subject is loyal to you. Look, after the revolution, it will be the autumn of peace. The roars of the 3,000 people shook the heavens and the earth, as if a gale was blowing. When the commoners heard this roar, their eyes instantly turned red. The commoner at the front seemed to be infected. He suddenly stood up, clenched his fists, and roared. Look, after the revolution, it will be the autumn of peace. With the first, there would be a second. The commoners couldn't help but stand up together and clap with the students. Look, after the revolution, it will be the autumn of peace. The officials in the audience couldn't help it anymore. They were all hot-blooded men, especially Qing Yaojin, Yu Qigong, and the others. They were all generals who fought on the battlefield and killed countless people. This battle song was like praising their achievements. How could they not be excited? Look, after the revolution, it will be the autumn of peace. They also roared. They weren't showing off their hard work in front of Li Shimin, but they felt the same way. They were also generals who fought on the battlefield, not emotionless machines. At this moment, the entire basketball court was filled with deafening roars. No one sat down. Everyone stood up spontaneously and sang this battle song for the Tang dynasty. Even Yu Shernan, Ouyang Xiu, and the others stood up shakily. Although they didn't like Li Shimin very much, They were still the people of the Tang dynasty. They couldn't fall behind at this moment. Look, after the revolution, it will be the autumn of peace. Everyone roared excitedly. The basketball court was stirred up again at this moment. The roars spread out again and again. The people at the foot of the mountain who hadn't gone up yet. The people at the foot of the mountain were a little confused, but the grand atmosphere also affected them. The crowd also spontaneously roared. Soon, the entire Shao Mountain was filled with roars that shook the sky. After about 15 minutes, the voices gradually quieted down. Everyone's mood was not so high. They used their palms to calm their restless hearts. They slowly sat down and waited for the next part of the basketball court. Zhang Feng walked out of the crowd. He slowly walked to the basketball court and picked up the microphone. Everyone, the opening ceremony is over. What do you think? As soon as he said that, the audience became excited again and cheered. President Zhang is a genius. He actually interpreted the music of the king of Qin breaking the enemy's front with a new feeling. Chapter 1761. That's right. President Zhang is more than just a genius. The vast ocean's laughter that he played at the Mid-Autumn Festival was heavenly. If I can listen to it again today, I, Zhang Hua, will have no regrets in my life. This sentence didn't mean much, but it attracted the attention of the surrounding people. That's right. President Zhang can play the vast ocean's laughter. The vast ocean's laughter. Immediately, the cheers caused a response. Everyone in the audience cheered non-stop. Many of them had heard Zhang Feng play the vast ocean's laughter at the Mid-Autumn Festival Gala. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that the music was heavenly. Every time they thought about it, they couldn't help but feel excited. Today, they had watched the Emperor of Qin breaking the array. If they could listen to the vast ocean's laughter as well, they wouldn't have lived in vain. The vast ocean's laughter, the vast ocean's laughter, even the officials in the audience cheered excitedly. Among them, the civil officials were the loudest. They boasted that they were from noble and prestigious families. Since young, they were attached to this kind of music. Or rather, they worshipped it. It was a passion in their bones. Of course, there were also some generals. Although they were rough and only knew how to fight and kill every day, this didn't stop them from appreciating the heavenly music. The craziest were the students of White Deer College. To them, Zhang Feng was their teacher, their second parent. Without Zhang Feng, some of them wouldn't know where to suffer. Without Zhang Feng, would they have such a good life? Without Zhang Feng, would they have a bright future? At this moment, their teacher was being chased by millions. As students and disciples, they had to be at the forefront. The students stood up spontaneously, clenched their fists, and shouted in unison. The vast ocean's laughter, the vast ocean's laughter, the vast ocean's laughter. At this moment, the atmosphere in the basketball court was pushed to an unprecedented climax. When the people saw the students stand up, they couldn't control their restless hearts. They stood up one after another and waved their fists in respect to Zhang Feng. Even the officials in the audience were affected. They clenched their fists and shouted loudly. On the stage, Zhang Feng's eyes were red as he looked at the audience with excitement. He didn't expect that his words would cause such a huge reaction. This was everyone's affirmation of their results. This was the trust that everyone had in his character. It was also everyone's appreciation of his work. At this moment, how could he disappoint everyone? He resolutely walked to the front of the band, picked up a flute, and then walked to Jingshu with a smile. At this moment, there was no need for too many words. Just a look and a smile was enough for the other party to understand. Jingshu blushed and nodded at Zhang Feng. Her feelings were self-evident. Ding! The sound of the zither rang out. Yu Yang was tactful. With the sound of Jingshu's guzheng, the crowd's shouts gradually stopped. They quietly looked at the beautiful couple on the stage, their minds already filled with endless thoughts. Some had even closed their eyes, preparing to listen to this peerless sound. Zhang Feng was very satisfied with the performance of the people on the stage. He put the flute to his mouth, closed his eyes, and slowly blew into it with a smile. Woo! The clear sound of the flute slowly spread out. It was as if a lonely swordsman was walking in the desert. The zither and zither chimed together. The sound was sometimes low and sometimes euphemistic. The sonorous music was intoxicating. Everyone spontaneously closed their eyes and carefully enjoyed the beautiful ensemble. At this moment, the audience was strangely quiet. It was as if everyone could hear the sound of their heartbeats and breathing. Even the usually carefree Cheng Yaojin and Yu Qigong put away their restless hearts. This was because they felt that Feng Zi's laughter seemed to be able to defeat the hostility in their hearts and purify their souls. At first, Cheng Yaojin and Yu Qigong thought that it was an illusion. However, after listening to it, they simply couldn't extricate themselves. The zither string seemed to be able to pluck at one's heart, and the flute seemed to be able to blow away the evil thoughts in one's heart. The lingering sound was beautiful and moving. On the side, Li Shimin was even more immersed. He had specially trained a group of musicians in the palace, and they were considered first-class experts. However, after hearing Feng Zi's laughter today, he realized that there was always someone better. Those guys couldn't even compare to a single finger of Feng Zi's. No, I must get Feng Zi's score today and listen to it every day in the palace. Listening to this kind of heavenly sound should prolong one's life. Everyone had different thoughts. Sitting in the first row, Yu Shernan, Ouyang Xiu, and the others didn't think so much. They were all literary experts and were praised by the world as great scholars. Usually, there were countless diners in their house and countless dances and music to their ears. However, after hearing Feng Zi's laughter today, they couldn't help but be intoxicated. At this moment, they felt as if they had been doused with a pot of strong wine, and their bodies were filled with enthusiasm. Feng Zi's laughter was the sword of this life. With Feng Zi's laughter, who could rival him? On the stage, the sound of the zither and flute gradually stopped. Only then did everyone slowly open their eyes and reluctantly pull themselves back from their reverie. They were somewhat unsatisfied. After all, this kind of heavenly sound was very difficult to hear. Chapter 1762. They had finally heard it today, but it was about to end again. Everyone looked at the beautiful woman on the stage with hope in their eyes. Zhang Feng put down his flute, and Jing Shu stopped playing her zither. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. Zhang Feng returned to the center of the court and picked up the microphone. Everyone, the opening ceremony is over. Now, let the basketball match begin. As soon as he finished speaking, the audience burst into applause. This was the afterglow that everyone dedicated to Zhang Feng's performance of the Laughter of the Sea. Of course, there was also the Qin Emperor breaking the array. With these two songs as the backdrop, the climax of the basketball court was stirred up again. Zhang Feng waved his hand and signaled for everyone to stop applauding. Then he continued, "Next, I will talk about the rules of the basketball match. As there are too many participants, each team will only have 3 matches. Out of the 3 matches, civil officials will fight civil officials, and generals will fight generals. Now, all the basketball teams, please get ready. The first match will be between the imperial scribe and the commandant." After he finished speaking, Zhang Feng got off the court. He was the referee this time to remind these people who were not familiar with the rules. After a while, 2 teams of young men wearing short sleeves and shorts walked onto the court. They were the imperial scribe Han Liang and the commandant Zhuorenhao. These 2 teams had the same status in the imperial court, and they usually did not like each other. There would be a fierce battle today. Zhang Feng stood in the center, and the 2 teams stood on either side of him. Let me say this first. This is a basketball match. Don't do anything indecent. You are all officials. I don't need to say more, right? Zhang Feng looked at the leaders of the 2 teams and said, why did he have to remind them? It was because he was worried that these guys would suddenly attack others during a basketball match. These guys were all generals. It was inevitable that they would bring their military habits to the court. If they treated the court as a battlefield, it would be a big problem. President Zhang, don't worry. I won't lower myself to his level. Liang He crossed his arms and said with disdain, who do you think you are? Do I need to lower myself to your level? Zhuorenhao glared at Liang He, not to be outdone. All right, don't be stubborn. The basketball match is more important. Zhang Feng waved his hand impatiently, signaling the 2 to get ready. After that, he tossed the basketball in his hand high into the air and turned around to stand at the edge of the court. Liang He and Zhuo Renhao jumped up high at the same time. The two of them were about the same height. However, Liang He's skills were better, and he managed to get the ball into his team's hands. When Na Cheng thought of this, Zhuo Zihao immediately lost his cool and wanted to turn around to snatch the ball. Liang He had sharp eyes and tripped Zhuo Zihao, causing him to fall to the ground. You mother***er dare to throw Lao Tzu. Zhuo Zihao crawled on the ground, glaring at Liang He with bloodshot eyes. That's your own bad luck. It's not Lao Tzu's fault. Liang He sneered. After saying that, he turned around and ran to the basket. He jumped high and shot a backhand shot. Zhuo Zihao wanted to cry but had no tears. He stood up and went to find Zhang Feng. Referee, that guy Liang He kicked me just now and made me fall. I want to file a complaint against him. Zhang Feng glanced at Liang He and realized that he was smiling at him. If he kicked you, you can kick him back. I'll let it go this time. It's just the beginning, don't disappoint the audience. Zhang Feng said calmly. This situation was not easy to judge. The other party did not foul, so it was not easy to punish him. Okay, I know. Zhuo Renhao sneered, turned around and ran away. After that, the two teams started to fight. It was either you punching me or kicking me. The habits of the military were brought over by these guys. However, this caused the audience to be extremely enthusiastic. They clapped their hands and some even cheered loudly for their favorite team. As the game continued, the audience cheered again. The officials in the audience sneered, as if to say that these guys were a disgrace to the imperial court. In the end, the Grand Scribe defeated the military officer and won the championship. Zhuo Renhao could only leave. Zhang Feng returned to the court and raised the microphone. The match between the Grand Scribe and the military officer was very exciting. Although there was a small accident, it was not bad. Next, let's welcome the Imperial College and the Hongwen Guan team. After that, the Imperial College and the Hongwen Guan team walked onto the court. This time, the team was led by two young men. Lu Hongwen and Ouyang Kai were too old and could not withstand such high-intensity exercise. The Imperial College team was led by Bai Fei, the son of a high official. The Hongwen Guan team was led by Ho Qiuping, the nephew of a concubine. Both of them were very powerful. Of course, this referred to their background. Zhang Feng called the two teams to his side and started to warn them. You saw the Grand Scribe and the military officer's team just now. You are all scholars, so I don't need to say more, right? President Zhang, don't worry. We are scholars, so we will not do anything vulgar. Bai Fei smiled and then looked at Ho Qiuping. What do you think, Brother Ho? Seeing that the other party had said so, Ho Qiuping naturally agreed. Of course, President Zhang, don't worry. Zhang Feng glanced at the two of them. Although the two of them were on good terms, he kept getting the feeling that these two fellows were restless. They would definitely cause some trouble. Chapter 1763. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but he decided to wait on the sidelines. After all, a scholar was no less ruthless than a general. The basketball was thrown up high, and Bai Fei took the lead to catch it with his height advantage. Ho Qiuping was also defending. The two teams played in a very orderly manner, with one attacking and one defending. Zhang Feng also felt that he was overthinking, so he let down his guard and prepared to drink a bowl of fermented glutinous rice. However, before he could drink it, he heard a loud shout. Bai Fei, what the F***ck are you doing? Can you kick that place? If you break it, you'll have no descendants. As soon as he said that, Zhang Feng was no longer in the mood to drink fermented glutinous rice. He quickly put down the bowl and ran to the court. There were many people around the court, and Zhang Feng quickly pushed the crowd away. Ho Qiuping was half lying on the court, curled up like an earthworm, and sweat was pouring down his face. Bai Fei, what the F***ck did you do to Ho Qiuping? Zhang Feng glared at Bai Fei, who was watching the show. Bai Fei was a little weak, but he still pretended to be calm. What can I do to him? I just kicked him. I didn't expect this guy to be so weak, so he was lying on the ground. Zhang Feng didn't want to talk nonsense with this guy. He wasn't afraid anyway. Hurry up and carry Ho Qiuping to the infirmary for treatment. After that, Zhang Feng looked at Bai Fei and said sternly, "If anything happens to Ho Qiuping, you don't have to participate in this game." Ah! Bai Fei's face changed color, and he quickly begged for mercy. "President Zhang, I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't know that guy would be like this. At most, I'll kick him back. Can you not deprive me of the right to participate?" However, Zhang Feng didn't want to listen to this guy's nonsense. He walked to the center of the court and said loudly, "There was an accident just now. Now, let's welcome the next team, the Vice Protector General." As he spoke, 2 teams walked up. These 2 teams were also made up of generals, but they were obviously better than the previous 2 teams. They came up and cupped their fists. This made Zhang Feng feel a lot more at ease. At the very least, these guys wouldn't be in the same situation as the previous 2 teams. However, for the sake of safety, after Zhang Feng threw the ball to the other side, he stood not far away and watched. If anything happened, he could immediately go on stage. Fortunately, the 2 teams had been playing in a civilized manner and no accidents had happened. They were all soldiers and had great strength. A casual slam dunk would cause the audience to cheer. And these shouts were like catalysts, making the valiant players keep running on the field. In the end, the Protector team won the competition. The attendants even cupped their fists politely to each other. It had to be said that the quality of each team could not be lumped together. Zhang Feng walked onto the stage with satisfaction and raised the microphone again. "The first half of the competition has ended. Now is the halftime break. Please enjoy my cotton-padded clothes show." As soon as he finished speaking, the audience was dumbfounded. They knew about cotton-padded clothes, but what was a cotton-padded clothes show? He had never heard of it before. Everyone looked at Zhang Feng with puzzled eyes, unable to understand. Zhang Feng didn't say anything. He just smiled faintly and waved to the audience. A moment later, dozens of students in bright red cotton-padded clothes stood on the stage. There were both men and women. They stood on the basketball court and walked back and forth one by one, stroking their cotton-padded clothes from time to time. Everyone's eyes lit up instantly. This was a visual feast. For these people, cotton-padded clothes were priceless treasures. They usually couldn't bear to wear them. Na Qing thought that President Zhang would arrange for these cotton-padded clothes to be displayed today. Today's game was so worth watching. Not only was there the music of the King of Qin breaking the formation, but there was also the laughter of the sea and the cotton-padded clothes show. The officials cheered even more. They were used to watching singing and dancing. Suddenly watching a cotton-padded clothes show made them feel refreshed. Seeing that everyone was happy, Zhang Feng hurried off the stage and went to the academy's cafeteria. He had been informed that during the halftime break, the cafeteria would provide free food. "Boss, give me 2 steamed buns and a bowl of mutton soup." Zhang Feng yelled at the cafeteria boss. The boss really wanted to curse out loud. "Mother f***er, who is disturbing me from watching the cotton-padded clothes show." In the end, when he saw that it was Zhang Feng, he hurriedly ran over with a smile on his face. "Yo, it's Principal Zhang. Why have you graced our shop with your presence today? What would you like to eat? It's my treat." The boss patted his chest and said each word with a resounding voice. Zhang Feng smiled. He didn't hear what the boss said and was only watching the cotton-padded clothes show. "You don't have to treat. Just give me 2 steamed buns and a bowl of mutton soup." "Alright, please go ahead." The boss ran away happily. While they were talking, the boss served the steamed buns and mutton soup. There was also a portion of braised mutton. "President Zhang, you can eat here first. Call me if you need anything. This portion of braised mutton is for you. It's free." After saying that, the boss ran to the front to watch the cotton-padded clothes show without waiting for Zhang Feng's reply. Zhang Feng shook his head and ignored him. He continued to eat and drink. At this time, a guy in the audience saw this scene and walked over with a hunched body. "President Zhang, are you eating?" Chapter 1764. With a steamed bun in his mouth, Zhang Feng turned around and saw that it was Lu Hongwen from the Imperial College. Damn it, Lao Tzu was eating. Why was this old fellow here? Could it be that he wanted to freeload? Even though he was cursing this fellow in his heart, he still had to agree. "So it's Chancellor Lu. Please take a seat here." May I know why you're looking for me? Lu Hongwen stroked his beard and smiled so much that the creases on his face could be seen. President Zhang first performed the Qin Emperor breaking through the battle array, then played the laughter of the vast sea, and then made a cotton-padded clothes show. You really opened old man's eyes. Zhang Feng was stunned on the spot. This fellow couldn't be flattering him, right? But he quickly denied this answer. Because Lu Hongwen didn't answer directly. There must be something important. Chancellor Lu, if you have something to say, just say it directly. There's no need to beat around the bush. Zhang Feng was a little impatient. He hated this kind of person the most, especially literati. They had to beat around the bush 3 times before they were willing to say what was in their heart. It was better to just say it directly. President Zhang is really a straightforward person. Then old man will just say it directly. One word, business. Lu Hongwen laughed and then said seriously, President Zhang, old man wants to work with you. You see, with old man's fame and status, plus your strength and wisdom, once we work together, we'll make a lot of money. Work together? Business? Zhang Feng was a little dumbfounded. He was eating here and suddenly came over to say that he wanted to work with him? Why didn't he let him be mentally prepared? He let out a long sigh. Just as he was about to speak, a voice came from behind him. Chancellor Lu, please slow down your business. I have something to discuss with President Zhang. The voice sounded familiar. Zhang Feng turned around in confusion. It was Lao Li. At this moment, Zhang Feng really felt that Lao Li was a living bodhisattva. Just when he didn't know how to deal with this old man, he came. This was his savior. He even wanted to give Lao Li a hug. Lao Li, you came at the right time. Come, take a seat. Zhang Feng quickly got up and gave his seat to Lao Li. He sat on the other side. Now that Lao Li is here, I have a way to deal with Lu Hongwen. With Lao Li by my side, I have a way to deal with him. On the other hand, Lu Hongwen's face was a little ugly, like a frosted eggplant. He knew Li Shimin's identity, so he hurriedly bid farewell and left. Feng Zi, you can't simply cooperate with others, especially such an old man. Li Shimin reminded Zhang Feng, afraid that the other party would go the wrong way. In fact, he had already seen Lu Hongwen just now, so he came down from the audience seat. He had heard the conversation between the two of them clearly. Actually, there are also benefits to cooperating with him. We can take the opportunity to attack the 5 surnames and 7 hopes and the Guanlong clan. Zhang Feng smiled, picked up the steamed bun and gnawed on it again. As soon as these words came out, Li Shimin was instantly energized. Because the 5 surnames and 7 hopes and the Guanlong clan were too strong, they had a tendency to influence the Tang dynasty, so they had always been the targets he wanted to attack. However, the other party's power was too big. They had branches all over the country. It would be extremely difficult to destroy them. Now Feng Zi said that he could attack them. How could this not make him happy? Feng Zi, what did you mean just now? Li Shimin hurriedly asked. Zhang Feng smiled and did not answer. Instead, he said to the boss beside him, Boss, give me another bowl of mutton soup. Just now, he had been chatting with the old guy Lu Hongwen, so the mutton soup was cold. When the boss heard that it was President Zhang, he moved quickly and quickly changed a bowl of hot soup for Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng took a sip of the mutton soup, then looked at Li Shimin and said slowly, Let me ask you, what do the 5 surnames and 7 hopes and the Guanlong clan rely on? In other words, why are they so powerful? Li Shimin frowned slightly. After thinking for a while, he blurted out, Scholars, money. That's right. After Zhang Feng had eaten his fill, he took out a cigarette from his waist and put it in his mouth. Most of the scholars in the world come from the 5 surnames, 7 hopes and 7 hopes, and the officials chosen by the imperial court must be knowledgeable people. Therefore, most of the officials in the imperial court are people from the 5 surnames, 7 hopes and 7 hopes. These students from the clans who are officials in the imperial court also recommend students from their own clans. This is why the 5 surnames, 7 hopes and 7 hopes occupy the imperial court. After saying that, he took out a lighter, lit the cigarette, and took a deep breath. Then, he took out a cigarette and handed it to Li Shimin. However, Li Shimin was not in the mood to take the cigarette. He frowned and thought about Zhang Feng's words. Zhang Feng was right. In the past, 60 to 70% of the officials in the imperial court were people from the 5 surnames, 7 Hopes and 7 Hopes and 7 Hopes. Why did officials have to be knowledgeable people? Books were so expensive that poor people could not afford them at all. Only people from the clans could afford them. This caused the officials in the imperial court to be people from the clans. This was something that could not be helped. The imperial court could not use illiterate men. However, in recent years, the number of officials from the clans in the imperial court had decreased. He knew that this was because of Zhang Feng. After graduating from White Deer College, one could enter the imperial court and become an official. Chapter 1765. White Deer College had very few people from the clans. Even if there were, they were in the minority. There aren't that many officials from the clans in the court now. It's all thanks to you. Li Shimin took the cigarette from Zhang Feng and said with a smile. This isn't enough. The clans have a deep foundation. This alone is unshakable. Zhang Feng took a deep breath and looked at Li Shimin. The scholars can be suppressed for now. The most important thing is the wealth of the clans. Most of their wealth comes from their own businesses. From what I know, these clans have businesses such as silk, clothes, wine, restaurants, brothels, and so on. Therefore, I've decided to unite all the businessmen in the world to fight against the clans. Li Shimin took a deep breath and said subconsciously, isn't this a bit difficult? The clans were good at doing business, which was why they were able to win over so many clans. They had people all over the world. It was unrealistic to use business to defeat them. Zhang Feng sighed. I know this method is difficult, but other than this, there's no other way to fight against the clans. You know their strength. Even the emperor has to be wary of them. As his voice fell, Li Shimin was stunned. That's right, even he felt that the strength of the clans was terrifying. Back then, when he led the army to quell the rebellion, there was no food in the army. He even borrowed food from the clans. Later on, when he ascended the throne, most of the people in the court were from the clans. Any big decision had to go through these people. Although a portion of these people had been eliminated, there were still some left in the court. That's right. Even the emperor has to be wary of the strength of the 5 surnames, 7 hopes and clans. However, I believe you can do it. Li Shimin gave Zhang Feng a look of trust. Of course I can do it. Do I need you to tell me that? Zhang Feng smiled and took a deep breath. Then he stood up. Let's go. The cotton-padded clothes show is about to end. It's your turn to perform in the second half. Li Shimin nodded, stood up, and walked toward the audience. When Zhang Feng returned to the stage, the cotton-padded clothes show had already ended. He picked up the microphone and shouted again, the cotton-padded clothes show is over. The second half has begun. Let us welcome the next team. After that, Qing Yaojin and Yu Qigong led their team members over. Neither of them was willing to submit to the other. They crossed their arms in front of their chests and glared at each other. Even their teammates had fierce looks on their faces. Old Cheng, old you two are familiar with the rules, so I won't say much about them. I just hope that you two play well and don't fight on the court. Zhang Feng glanced at the two of them and said seriously. He knew that the two of them were like old urchins. He was quite old, and his temperament was like that of a child. Don't worry, Big Black and I won't cause trouble for you. Cheng Yaojin was all smiles. As he spoke, he even put his arm around Yu Qigong's shoulder, causing the latter to look at him with disdain. That's good. Get ready to start. After that, Zhang Feng threw the basketball up high and walked off the court. Although the two of them were usually unreliable, he believed that they would not screw up in a situation like this. Sure enough, the two of them performed well on the court, going back and forth. At the beginning, Cheng Yaojin beat Yu Qigong with a dunk. Although the latter's team members were all soldiers, they were not as slick as Cheng Yaojin's team members. They were always taken advantage of. Seeing that his team was at a disadvantage, Yu Qigong immediately yelled at his team members. Not only was it effective, but they were all soldiers. The blood in their hearts was instantly stimulated, and they slammed Cheng Yaojin several times in a row. A moment later, Yu Qigong won the game with an absolute advantage. However, Cheng Yaojin seemed to be a little unconvinced. As soon as he got off the court, he asked Yu Qigong to play another game after the game. Zhang Feng did not care so much about them. He directly walked onto the court and raised the microphone. Let's welcome the next team. The team that walked onto the court was Li Shimin's army of women. The other team was a team of wealthy businessmen from Chang and City. There was no other way. The officials of the imperial court did not dare to play against Li Shimin's army of women. If they won, it would be disrespectful to the emperor. If they lost, they had to lose in a dignified manner. It was too difficult. At this moment, a wealthy businessman from Chang and City stood up. This made the officials very happy, and they immediately pushed the businessman up. Zhang Feng glanced at the two teams and said slowly, "The game comes first, friendship comes second." Lao Li's team was made up of women. Naturally, he had to tell the other side first. It was to avoid unnecessary trouble. After that, he threw the basketball up and stood on the sidelines, paying close attention to every movement on the court. Although the army of women led by Xiao Zi was all women, they were not weak at all. They got a rebound on the court. In the end, the wealthy businessmen's team basically did not touch the ball except for offense and defense. The entire court was dominated by the army of women. This scene caused Li Shimin, who was in the audience, to repeatedly praise. The result was without a doubt. The army of women took the first place with an absolute advantage. Zhang Feng walked onto the court again and said loudly, "After many rounds of games, there are now only 4 teams left. The Grand Historian's team, the Protector's team, the Army's team, and the Army of Women. Now, the finals will be held. The Grand Historian's team will fight against the Protector's team, and the Army's team will fight against the Army of Women." Chapter 1766. As soon as he finished speaking, the Grand Scribe's team and the Protector's team were already on the court. Zhang Feng tossed the basketball high into the air and walked off the court. Both teams had decent strength and discipline, so there was no need to say too much. At the beginning of the match, the Grand Scribe's team won the first ball and forced the Protector's team to retreat. The audience cheered, and the Grand Scribe's team became even more motivated. Their attacks became even fiercer, and they directly grabbed the rebound. The Protector's team couldn't defend in time and lost. Next up was Yu Qigong's military team and Li Shimin's women's team. Yu Qigong originally didn't want to play against Li Shimin's women's team. After all, the women's team was already very strong, and they were Li Shimin's team. Anyone who went up against them would die. However, he couldn't ignore the enthusiasm of his brothers behind him, so he had to bite the bullet and go up. As soon as he went up, Xiao Zi led the charge and didn't let go of the basketball. Yu Qigong couldn't snatch it from her, so he got the rebound. The poor Yu Qigong could only defend. Xiao Zi took an inch and wanted a mile. She led the women's team and bombarded them, and they won in less than half an hour. At this moment, only the Grand Scribe's team and the women's team were left. The champion would be decided between them. The Grand Scribe was the same as Yu Qigong. He knew that this was the Emperor's team, so he didn't dare to fight them head-on. He just wanted to make sure that he didn't lose too badly. After all, he still had many brothers behind him. On the court, Xiao Zi led the women's team to attack again. The Grand Scribe's team was clearly inferior to Yu Qigong's team. At the beginning, he was still defending, but later on, he almost begged for mercy. However, the women's team didn't give him the chance. They attacked even more fiercely, and the Grand Scribe's strength gradually fell short of his desire. In the end, the Grand Scribe was defeated, and the women's team took first place with an absolute advantage. After the match, Zhang Feng walked up the court and stood next to the women's team. He picked up the microphone and said loudly, "Today's basketball match is officially over. Congratulations to the women's team for taking first place." As soon as he finished speaking, the crowd cheered. The women's team is really strong. I had high hopes for them when they first came on the court. Yeah, look at the legs of that female army, Hithidisc. Even Li Shimin, who was in the audience, kept applauding. Although he knew that part of the reason why the female army could win was because of him, winning was something worth being happy about. Who cared about how they won? Cheng Yaojin and Yu Qigong had bitter smiles on their faces. How could they not be heartbroken when the team they had painstakingly trained had lost just like that? Sitting in the first row, Xianxia, Xianxia, and the others coldly snorted and ignored him. There were happy people, sad people, and even those who were unconvinced and prepared for a fight. It was very noisy. Zhang Feng held the microphone high and said again, "The basketball game has officially ended. The Academy's canteen has prepared free food for everyone. If you want to eat, you can go now. If you don't want to, you can go down the mountain at any time." As soon as he finished speaking, the audience cheered. They didn't expect that there would be free food while watching a football match. Who wouldn't be happy? The people rushed into the canteen. It wasn't that they were greedy, but that they didn't have any extra food. They either sold it or ate it themselves. Now, Zhang Feng's words immediately aroused their interest. The canteen was immediately crowded. Except for the people, everyone else went down the mountain, including Li Shimin and the others. They wanted to go back and celebrate. It was a happy thing to win the first place today. They had to have a big banquet. Cheng Yaojin looked for Yu Qigong with an angry face and said that he wanted to fight. Yu Qigong naturally wouldn't back down. The two of them randomly found a place to fight. The food in the canteen was very popular with the people. It didn't take long for them to finish everything. Everyone went down the mountain with satisfaction, burping from time to time. Chang and city regained its peace. Peddlers walked on the street, and the stalls moved out tables and chairs. Servants shouted from time to time in the streets and alleys. The prosperous Chang and once again appeared in front of everyone. The next day, the golden crow was born, and the jade rabbit had fallen. The golden sunlight shone on Mount E, as if the whole mountain was covered in golden bricks. The sounds of students reading aloud rang out from the White Deer Institute. This was their morning lesson, and also the time when they were the most serious. The old scholar stood on the podium, and from time to time, he would say something. On the basketball court, a few scantily dressed students were chasing each other. Suddenly, a loud shout came from not far away. The students quickly turned around and saw that someone was staring at them. They quickly threw down the basketball and ran to the classroom. There were always a few mischievous students in the college who would risk punishment to do what they liked. The basketball students were one of them. The last dormitory in the college was Zhang Feng's residence. He had just woken up. Zhang Feng yawned and drowsily washed his face with the water that the student brought over. Then, he picked up a cigarette from the bedside and lit it. He took a deep puff and said, "This feels so good." He walked to the classroom with his hands behind his back. He checked his homework. This was something he did every day. Chapter 1767. Disciple Rules, Sage Teachings. First, filial piety. Second, sincere faith. Love the masses, kind-hearted. If you have spare energy, you should learn literature. Clear sounds of recitation could be heard from the classroom. Zhang Feng stood at the window and glanced around. Seeing that there was nothing out of the ordinary, he flung his sleeves and left. At this moment he felt hungry. He rubbed his stomach and realized that he had not eaten. Without hesitation, he quickly walked to the cafeteria. "Boss, give me a bowl of braised meat noodles." He randomly found a seat and shouted at the boss. When the boss saw that the dean had arrived, he naturally did not dare to delay. In a short while, he served a bowl of piping hot braised meat noodles. Zhang Feng finished the delicious food in his bowl quickly and even burped. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, he lit another cigarette. Unknowingly, he thought about the forging workshop. Previously, he had brought Lao Li and the others to experiment with firearms. Unfortunately, the firearms had too many flaws. Not only were they loud, but they also emitted white smoke when they were fired. Damn it, they had been discovered by the enemy before they were even killed. Before he left, he had instructed Alkinen to improve the firearms. He wondered how the kid was doing. However, even if the kid had done it, the firearms were still very loud. If he gave the firing pin firearms from the future to Alkinen, the results might be much better. With Alkinen's intelligence, he would not disappoint him. At this thought, he hurriedly stood up and walked to the back of the mountain. The forging workshop and White Deer College were both on Pyrolite Mountain. The only difference was that the forging workshop was in a cave on a cliff. Thus, the two were not very far from each other. Zhang Feng walked for less than half an hour before he saw a huge cave. It was the entrance to the forging workshop. Zhang Feng did not hesitate and directly stepped into the cave. The cave was the same as before. The moment he stepped in, he smelled a pungent odor. This odor was none other than the smell of gunpowder and various smelting materials. It smelled very uncomfortable. As he walked in, the temperature rose and the environment became increasingly stuffy. It felt like he was taking a bath in boiling hot water. An ordinary person would not be able to withstand such an environment. However, there was nothing he could do about it. If he wanted to forge steel, he had to do it under high temperatures. He couldn't help but give Arcanon and the others a thumbs up. They were really F***ing awesome. They could still persevere in such a hot environment. It showed how much they loved forging. At the same time, it also proved that he hadn't misjudged them. Ding ding, sounds of metal clashing could be heard. Zhang Feng knew that he had arrived. He quickened his pace, and what appeared before him was the familiar scene from before. In the middle of the cave, there was a table with many messy parts on it. There were also some failed smelting weapons. There were also a dozen oil lamps on the side, illuminating the cave as if it was daytime. In the mountain wall, there were more than a dozen large holes. Inside each hole were oil lamps and water. These oil lamps allowed the smelters to find a trace of light in the darkness. Not far away, there was a huge furnace. Many shirtless men surrounded the furnace. They were sweating profusely and holding metal tools in their hands. They kept throwing things into the furnace. Upon closer inspection, they were all failed smelting weapons or deformed metals. They slowly took out the metals that had been smelted in the furnace with tongs. The shirtless men immediately surrounded them. They held hammers in their hands and kept hitting the metal tools that had just been smelted. Below, there were people adding charcoal. Not far away, there were a few men picking up the weapons on the ground. There were Mitsubishi bayonets, Miaodao, and so on. Their bodies were red from the reflection of the fire. There were many black scars on their faces. Sweat kept dripping onto their weapons. There was a sizzling sound as if the weapons were being quenched. One of the men who was picking up the weapons inadvertently glanced at Zhang Feng. He exclaimed, "Dean? Why are you here? Is Arcanon here? I'm here to look for him." Zhang Feng glanced at the crowd and asked, "He's working on the second floor." The man replied. Zhang Feng nodded and walked to the second floor. After the expansion of the workshop, there were now a total of 6 floors. There were different weapons and smelting materials. On the second floor, Zhang Feng had just walked to the entrance of the cave when he saw Arcanon holding a gun. He was thinking about something. There were many people around him. "Arcanon, how's the modification of the gun coming along?" Zhang Feng quickly walked to the front of the crowd and asked Arcanon. Only then did Arcanon react. He hurriedly turned around, but he didn't answer Zhang Feng's question. Instead, he frowned. The people around him saw this and hurriedly said to Zhang Feng, "President Zhang, the gun is already in mass production. I believe that once this batch of guns is shipped to the north, there will be no worries about the war there." Zhang Feng nodded and looked at Arcanon. He didn't understand why Arcanon looked so unhappy. Weren't the guns already in mass production? "Arcanon, what's wrong with you? Is there a problem with the guns?" This was the only question Zhang Feng could think of. Chapter 1768. Hearing this, Arcanon looked at Zhang Feng with a worried expression. "Dean, there is no problem with the gun, but it is a bit troublesome to reload. I was thinking that it would be great if the gun could be reloaded in the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, or if it could be used like a crossbow." As soon as he finished speaking, Zhang Feng suddenly thought of the firing pin gun. This was exactly what he wanted to talk to Arcanon about. He didn't expect Arcanon to be thinking about it himself. "That's great, I'll leave it to him." Zhang Feng smiled and patted Arcanon on the shoulder. "Arcanon, this is actually not that difficult." As soon as he finished speaking, Arcanon couldn't remain calm anymore. He grabbed Zhang Feng's hand and hurriedly said, "Dean, do you have a way?" Even the people around him looked anxious as they stared at Zhang Feng with burning eyes. They were all blacksmiths, or rather, smelters. Other than high-end technology, there was nothing else that could attract them. They had racked their brains to perfect the gun, but there were still a lot of flaws. This was a knot in their hearts. But now, the dean said that he had a way. How could they not be excited? Zhang Feng glanced at the crowd and waved his hand to signal them to calm down. Then, he said solemnly, "First, you have to know how the firing pin works." Hearing this, the crowd looked at Zhang Feng in confusion. Then, they looked at Arcanon. The latter helplessly spread his hands, indicating that he didn't know either. Then, the crowd turned back to Zhang Feng, waiting to hear more. Zhang Feng smiled faintly and continued, "The gun can only hold one bullet, which is a steel ball. You only need to add a spring, a spiral groove, a spiral chamber, and a bullet chamber to hold 6 steel balls at a time. Then, the trigger will push the iron, and when the iron moves back, it will compress the metal spring in the stock. The compressed metal spring will eject the iron forward, and the iron will hit the primer behind the steel ball. At that time, the primer will ignite the propellant, and the propellant will ignite, instantly pushing the steel ball to kill the enemy. However, there is a flaw in this principle. It can only hold 6 steel balls at a time. Every time you pull the trigger, you have to pull the trigger every time, and the steel ball will have to be reloaded." After speaking, Zhang Feng glanced at the crowd and found that they were all looking at him in confusion. "Do you understand?" Zhang Feng asked. Arcanon frowned and slowly said, "I understand half of it." "Half is not bad." Zhang Feng nodded and continued, "You just follow my method and perfect it. If there is anything you don't understand, you can come to me at any time." After speaking, Zhang Feng walked to the table next to him, picked up a pen, and wrote down the principle he had just explained for Arcanon. "This is the principle of the firing pin. Look carefully." Zhang Feng handed the paper to Arcanon and turned to leave. Arcanon took the paper and began to admire it. For him, it was simply a treasure. He was a person who was obsessed with technology. With this, he was very confident that he could improve the gun and reach the level that the director had mentioned. Just then, an untimely voice came from beside him. "Arcanon, have you heard? President Zhang is going to Jiangnan?" "What?" Arcanon exclaimed. The paper in his hand was no longer fragrant. He looked at the man who had just spoken and hurriedly asked, "Where did you hear that? Why is the director going to Jiangnan?" He knew that Jiangnan was not a good place. There were many clans there, and there were many bandits. Even though Jiangnan was known as the home of talents, how many people knew just how dangerous it was beneath this home of talents? What if President Zhang was killed by the clans in Jiangnan? Those guys would eat people up without spitting out the bones. At this moment, his heart suddenly tightened. He was very worried about Zhang Feng. The man looked at the ferocious Arcanon and stammered, "I don't know." In fact, he really did not know. He had only heard it from a student of the academy. Hearing this, Arcanon furrowed his brows. He had planned to ask the director why he was going to Jiangnan and perhaps persuade him. However, after half a day, he could not say anything. He also wanted to persuade the director directly, but according to the director's temper, he probably would not listen to him. What should he do? Suddenly, an idea appeared in his mind. The director is going to Jiangnan. According to his temper, we can't persuade him. Since this is the case, we have to make something for him to protect himself. Hearing this, the gloomy faces of the crowd suddenly became joyful. There was a burst of exclamations. "That's right. We are indebted to the director. This time, the director is going to Jiangnan. It's time for us to repay his kindness. But how can we make something for him to protect himself? You know, the director doesn't lack anything." Everyone shifted their puzzled gazes back to Arcanon. Arcanon narrowed his eyes and pondered for a moment. He seemed to have thought of something and suddenly said, "I have an idea. We can think of a way to make this gun shorter. It will be easier to hide. This way, the director can protect himself." Chapter 1769. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone was shocked. They stared at him in disbelief. They remembered that the dean had told them about it, but it was just a casual remark. After all, it was a big deal. No one could be sure whether it was true or not. However, when they thought of the fact that the dean was going to Jiangnan and how dangerous it was, they knew that the dean would be in danger without their own people. Immediately, they clenched their fists and expressed their opinions. Arcanon is right. Jiangnan is so dangerous. Do you want the dean to die? Since the dean said so, there must be a chance to shorten the gun. I'll do it. Me too. If I can't repay the dean's kindness, I won't be able to rest in peace. Arkanon nodded with satisfaction. He looked at the crowd and said, in that case, we have to make it before the dean goes to Jiangnan. Only then can we give it to the dean to protect himself. Just then, a shirtless man came forward and asked, Arkanon, should we mass produce it? Maybe it'll be a big profit. Hearing that, Arkanon grabbed the Tang knife on the ground and put it against the man's neck. He said fiercely, do you want to die? I'm warning you. Apart from the dean, if you tell anyone about this, I'll chop you off. The man looked away and kept glancing at the Tang knife. His forehead was covered in cold sweat and his face was pale. Don't worry. I won't. Hearing that, Arkanon slowly put down the Tang knife. Then, he glanced at the crowd and said coldly, think about it. If it weren't for the dean, we wouldn't have had the chance to touch such a magical object. The dean gave us a chance, so we have to have a conscience. We can't bite the hand that feeds us. Anyway, I'll say it again. If anyone dares to tell anyone about this, I'll chop him off first. Hearing this, everyone's body trembled. They were all men. They were all brave. Who didn't understand what Arkanon was saying? Without the dean, they wouldn't have been able to touch such a thing. Today, the dean had told them about the principles, which meant that he didn't treat them as outsiders. If they spread what the dean taught them, they wouldn't be human anymore. Arkanon and I, Wu Jing, hereby swear that if I speak a single word about what happened today, I will die without a complete corpse. You can come and take my head at any time. A man who called himself Wu Jing knelt on the ground and faced White Deer College. He raised 3 fingers and swore to the heavens. With the first, there would soon be a second. In an instant, everyone in the cave knelt down. They faced White Deer College, raised 3 fingers, and muttered something. I swear to the heavens that if I reveal a single word of what happened today to anyone, I will be destroyed by the heavens and the earth, and fall into the 18 levels of hell forever. I, Zhu Wei, swear to the heavens today that if I reveal a single word of what happened today to anyone, I will be destroyed by the heavens and the earth, and fall into the 18 levels of hell forever. Fu Zhuan swears to the heavens today that if I reveal a single word of what happened today to outsiders, I will definitely be destroyed by the heavens and the earth and fall into the 18 levels of hell forever. Alkinen nodded in satisfaction, but he was worried about something else. Although everyone had sworn an oath, the temptation of the gun was too great. It was inevitable that there would be some people with bad intentions. At present, there was only one way, and that was to follow the method of manufacturing the gun. Everyone was responsible for the parts. They only knew the parts they made and didn't know about the other parts. Even if all the parts were put together, they wouldn't know how to assemble them. This was the safest method. Otherwise, if the parts were leaked, it would be a big problem. When the dean left, he would pass the gun to him. That would be a satisfactory answer for the dean. White Deer College. After Zhang Feng returned from the workshop, he was alone in his room, thinking about the gun. He had given the gun to Arkanon. He believed that Arkanon had the ability to perfect it. However, he was still somewhat worried. He took a deep breath and slowly exhaled the smoke. Just as he was about to go out for a walk, he heard footsteps outside. Zhang Feng opened the door and saw the stooped figures of Yu Shinan, Ouyang Xiu, and the others. However, there was something strange. They were all hugging quilts and clothes. He didn't know what they were doing. The cotton-padded clothes and blankets weighed them down, making it difficult for them to walk, but they still refused to put them down. Gentlemen, what are you doing with the quilts? Zhang Feng raised his head and asked. You still have the nerve to say that? These are all for you. Come take them. Yu Shinan threw the quilts to Zhang Feng. When the others saw this, they also put the quilts on Zhang Feng's body. They didn't care if he could take it or not. The sudden arrival of the quilts made it hard for Zhang Feng to breathe. He wanted to throw the quilts on the ground, but after thinking about it, he remembered that the quilts were rare items. Who knew how many lives it could save? Moreover, the quilts were put up by the gentleman, so he couldn't throw them away. But why did the gentleman put the quilts up? Gentlemen, what are you doing? The quilts are making it hard for me to breathe. Chapter 1770. Zhang Feng struggled to poke his head out of the quilt, panting heavily. "Brat, this is our gift to you. You can just put it down." Yu Shernan stroked his beard as he made some sarcastic remarks. Zhang Feng rolled his eyes, turned around, walked into the room, and threw the cotton-padded clothes on the bed. Yu Shernan and the others slowly entered the room and saw Zhang Feng standing there angrily. He smiled and said, "Boy, come here. We have something to tell you." After that, they found a chair and sat down. Zhang Feng moved a stool from the side and walked to the side of the crowd to sit down. He complained, "Dear teachers, if you want to send me a quilt, you can just find someone to do it. Why do you have to come here yourself?" Xianxia laughed and scolded, "Boy, don't be so ungrateful. Do you think we old men want to give you a quilt? We have something important to tell you." Zhang Feng was interested. "What is it? You even made us come here personally." Yu Shernan looked at Zhang Feng and smiled. "We heard that you were going to Jiangnan. Is it true?" Zhang Feng smiled and said, "Masters, you are really well informed. Yes, I am planning to go to Jiangnan." Yu Shernan looked at Xianxia and the others. They looked at each other and revealed a gratified smile, as if they had confirmed something. However, they did not see the old scholar frowning. Xianxia stroked his beard and smiled. "Fengzi, you have made the right decision. Jiangnan has been a place full of outstanding people since ancient times. It has beautiful mountains and clear waters and is a place full of talented people. If you go there, you will definitely achieve something. Moreover, Jiangnan will be far away from the court. It will be beneficial for you." The four of them all hoped that Zhang Feng could go to Jiangnan. First, he could be far away from the court, far away from Li Shimin. Second, Jiangnan had always been known as a land of literature. Zhang Feng had been more or less influenced in the past. From then on, he had devoted himself to the study of Confucianism. However, the old scholar was a little unhappy. He looked at the crowd and said, "I'm afraid that's not necessarily the case. Although Jiangnan is far from the imperial court, there is an even more powerful guy there. That is the 5 families and 7 nobles. They have been entrenched in Jiangnan for many years and have a deep foundation. Moreover, there are many clans. If Feng Zi goes there, he will definitely accelerate the conflict with them." Seeing the two gentlemen arguing, Zhang Feng naturally knew that they were doing this for his own good. He hurriedly advised, "Masters, there is no need to be like this. Since this brat dares to go to Jiangnan, he naturally has full confidence. When the time comes, I will bring guards. Moreover, with my intelligence, I believe that those clans will not dare to do anything to me." "Kid, you're too confident." The old scholar snorted, his face full of worry. "Do you know how powerful the 5 families and 7 nobles are? How dare you boast so shamelessly?" Then, without waiting for the others to speak, he continued, "The earliest clans in Jiangnan can be traced back to the Zhou dynasty. Back then, the sons of the Zhou dynasty's Emperor Taibo and Zhongyong brought their relatives and settled in Jiangnan. They brought with them the most advanced farming techniques of the Central Plains. Later, Jiangnan slowly grew stronger and began to develop cloth, silk, tea, and so on. Slowly, the clans rose. Since ancient times, there have been countless wars. After so many dynasties, the clan's power has not been affected. What do you think?" He was born in Jiangnan and lived in Jiangnan. He had dealt with many of the clans in Jiangnan and deeply understood how terrifying they were. "Mr. Zihuai, you're worrying too much," Yu Shernan added. He looked at the old scholar and said, "There are indeed many clans in Jiangnan. However, not all of them are hostile to Fengzi. You should know that not all clans are unpardonable. Moreover, Jiangnan is a famous country of culture and the home of talents. It is often a place where famous writers and scholars gather. There are also many famous scholars who serve as officials. Fengzi will only benefit from going there." Chu Suiliang and the others nodded. Except for Xueji, the other 3 were all from Jiangnan. Naturally, they had deep feelings for Jiangnan. The old scholar shook his head. "That's not right. Jiangnan is full of the 5 families and 7 nobles. Among them, the Cuis, the Lu, the Li, and so on are the most powerful clans in the world. They control Jiangnan all year round and will not allow outsiders to interfere. These kids all know what the teachers said. Zhang Feng continued, however, I've still decided to go to Jiangnan. For him, this trip to Jiangnan was imperative. Not only did he want to open the maritime Silk Road and make perfume, but more importantly, it was because of you. Yu Shernan and the others nodded thoughtfully. They knew that if Fengzi went to Jiangnan, Li Shimin would not leave him alone. With his ability, he could definitely ensure Fengzi's safety. Yu Shernan said with a smile, Mr. Zihuai, you don't have to worry so much. If Fengzi goes to Jiangnan, there is still Lao Li. Lao Li? The old scholar was startled. Indeed, if Fengzi went to Jiangnan, those people would not leave him alone. With them, Fengzi would not be in danger. However, in this way, Fengzi would be entangled with them again. This was the last thing he wanted to see. Chapter 1771. Just as he was about to dissuade him, there was a rush of footsteps outside the door. Then Cheng Chumo, Gaoken, Shiva, and the others walked in. Fengzi, we heard you talking about Jiangnan just now outside the door. What's wrong? What happened in Jiangnan? Cheng Chumo leaned in front of Zhang Feng with a sneaky look. Nothing, I'm just going to Jiangnan. Zhang Feng moved his body and replied casually. Jiangnan? Cheng Chumo's eyes turned quickly, as if he was calculating something. Fengzi, when are you going? I'll go with you. Jiangnan was a good place. There were talents and beautiful women, and it could be far away from the capital. At that time, old Sheng would not be able to control him. At that time, he might even be able to make a lot of money. Wouldn't it be great to kill two birds with one stone? You. Zhang Feng glanced at Cheng Chumo in confusion. What are you going to do? It's not a fun place. He knew this guy. He would not get up early if there were no benefits. There must be something he did not say. Cheng Chumo patted his chest and said without blushing, Hey, we are good brothers. If you want to go to Jiangnan, of course I have to escort you. As soon as he finished speaking, Gao can also put on a smile and leaned in front of Zhang Feng. Yes, Jiangnan is full of people from the clan. With us helping you, you won't be bullied. I don't need you to escort me. I'll find guards. Zhang Feng said with a little disdain. Who knew what these guys were up to? They wanted to go to Jiangnan with him for no reason. It was definitely not a good thing. Although he did not know why they wanted to go to Jiangnan with him, according to their character, it was definitely not a good thing. Boy, you don't know what's good for you. Gao Can deliberately said with a dark face, You're not familiar with Jiangnan. With Chumo and me, you can get along well. Hearing this, Zhang Feng frowned. Jiangnan was not for fun. His life might be in danger. If something were to happen, how was he going to explain it to their families? Thinking of this, he immediately refused. No, I'm not going to Jiangnan for fun this time. What if there's danger? How am I supposed to explain this to your family? I say, Fengzi, aren't you worrying too much? Cheng Chumo patted Zhang Feng's shoulder, raised his head and said proudly, Who am I? How can I be bullied by others? It's good enough that I don't bully others. Which bastard dares to bully me? He was right. Who would dare to bully Qing Yaojin's son? He must be tired of living. Zhang Feng pursed his lips, not wanting to bother with this arrogant guy. At this time, Shiva looked at Zhang Feng with a pleading gaze. Teacher, please let us go with you. I've been in the Tang dynasty for so long, and I've always heard that Jiangnan is the home of talents. I've always wanted to see it for myself. He was different from Cheng Chumo. He really wanted to see it. He had been in the Tang dynasty for so long, and he had always heard that Jiangnan was full of talents and beauties. It was rich and vast, and he had long yearned for it. Today, his teacher said that he was going to Jiangnan. How could he let go of this opportunity? Looking at Shiva's sincere eyes, Zhang Feng was a little hesitant. If it weren't for Shiva, he might have agreed. After all, Shiva was the prince of Zhenla. If anything happened to him in Jiangnan, it would be hard to explain. However, on second thought, if he had these guys to escort him, it might be much better. Just as he was hesitating, Yu Shernan said, Fengzi, what Chumo and the others said makes sense. After all, Jiangnan doesn't have your power. Take more people with you just in case. Even the old scholar, who had been against it, nodded and said, Yes, It's better to be prepared. It's always good to take more people with you. He finally understood that this guy had made up his mind to go to Jiangnan. No matter how he persuaded him, it would be useless. In addition, these troublemakers next to him were making trouble. It was better to let him be free. Hearing this, Zhang Feng nodded and agreed, "All right then, but you have to listen to me when the time comes." He still had to give face to these gentlemen. In addition, it was not a bad thing to take these guys with him, so he took them with him. However, Cheng Chumo, like Lao Tzu, was a restless master. Everything had to be said in advance. Otherwise, there would be trouble. "We will listen to you." Cheng Chumo agreed with a happy face. He was overjoyed at the thought of being able to get away from old Cheng's evil hands. Gao Ken and Shiva also nodded quickly to show that they were very obedient. Zhang Feng was relieved. Later, they sat together and chatted about some trivial matters of the academy. Then they left. Zhang Feng went to Chang'an University. Before going to Jiangnan, he had to make some arrangements. Chang'an University. As soon as Zhang Feng walked into the school gate, he saw students wandering in the school. It was the end of class. Many students were resting on the playground, and many were playing basketball. When they saw Zhang Feng, they all looked at him with respect. "Hello, Director." Zhang Feng nodded to the crowd. He looked at a student next to him and asked, "Where are Ma Zhou and Hao Chu Jun?"